One, today is September 24th, 2024 at 6 p.m. A call for order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Aliaga.
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Treasurer Brown.
Here.
Trustee Morocco.
Here.
Trustee Ritchie.
Here.
Trustee Tedder.
Here.
And Trustee Alamo, who's absent this evening. We have a quorum.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Board and public announcement. Any member of the board would like to make it? Oh,
I have a
Clerk
few.
Newbeck, yes?
The Independence Township Fire Department will be hosting their annual open house during Fire Prevention Week. The event will be held on Sunday, October 6th from noon till 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1. Activities include firefighting and canine demonstrations, a bounce house, and food trucks. We have some flyers available on the table where the agendas are near the entrance if you'd like to take one on your way out. And I'd also like to thank the fire department and congratulate them for raising a total of $18,693.94 during their recent Fill the Boot drive. Those funds raised during that event will support the mission of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And lastly, I want to thank my staff. They've been working very diligently to get your absentee ballots. Those of you that have applied for an absentee ballot, those went to the post office this afternoon. We have mailed 8,729 ballots. So be on the lookout. You should see them within the next few days if you've applied. If you haven't, you stop by the office and apply. And we have applications also online. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to
Trustee
make a
Morocco?
comment that this Saturday at the historic Brady Lodge will be the fundraiser for Preservation Clarkston. At 5 p.m. there's still some tickets available. You can get the information on Facebook at Preservation Clarkston. That supports the Bailey House and the construction tech program for the high school kids.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Treasurer Brown?
I've been running through my head this week. I lost a neighbor very suddenly and sadly, and I just want to encourage people to remember what's important and tell people how much you love them, and because life's short and we don't know when that's going to end. And I just felt moved to mention that, and we can all think about that when we go about our daily lives.
Thank you, Paul. Sorry for your loss. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Public comments. Anyone that would like to address to the board for 5 minutes? Remember, it's public comments, it's not a debate, it's not a forum. It's your chance to address to the board.
Tasha Shergan, 9393 Thornhill Drive. I'm here today to address the Red Barn gas station project. I'm going to start by reminding you of a few parts of the Michigan Constitution that are relevant to this matter. Article 1, Section 1, political power. All political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for the equal benefit, security, and protection. So I'm standing here today as a member of the Residential Open Spaces Committee, and more importantly, as one of the people of this township. Article 1, Section 3, Assembly Consultation, Instruction, Petition. The people have the right peaceably to assemble, to consult for the common good, to instruct their representatives, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. My grievance is this. With the Red Barn gas station project, beyond it being a violation of the Independence Township Master Plan, the community has many concerns. The health and safety of the community, the impact on the environment, the economic impact of the property owners in the area are just a few reasons that I'm mentioning. Now I want to share with you 2 legal maxims. A maxim is an established principle or proposition of the law that is universally admitted as being just and consonant. They are principles and authorities and part of the general customs or common law of the land. Maxim 51P. The main objective of government is the protection and preservation of personal rights, private property, and public liberties, and upholding the law of God. Maxim 94H. It is just that every person is entitled to a certain remedy in the laws for all injuries or wrongs which he may receive in his person, property, or character. There are also 2 more articles from the state constitution that apply to this matter. Article 4, Section 51 of the Michigan Constitution states, "The public health and general welfare of the people of the state are hereby declared to be matters of primary public concern. The legislature shall pass suitable laws for the protection and promotion of the public health." And Article 4, Section 52, "The conservation and development of natural resources of the state are hereby declared to be of paramount public concern in the interests of the health, safety, and general welfare of the people. The legislature shall provide for the protection of the air, water, and other natural resources of the state from pollution, impairment, and destruction." All of you on this board took an oath to the Constitution and to protect the citizens of this township, and you are to abide by that oath. With this project, if you vote to allow it, then you will be in violation of our constitutional rights. I've printed up a copy of my public comment, and I'm asking it to be entered into the public record. So Carrie, I can give that to you after. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Thanks, Tasha. Anyone else that would like to address to the board?
Linda Bazone, 7925 Foster Road, Clarkston, Michigan. I too would like to ask you to say no to the Red Barn project. I drove around all Independence Township today, and we have 10 gas stations in Independence Township and the village. We have Alex Gas Station, we have Satchaba and Marathon right next to Royal Diner. We have a BP on Main Street. We have a Sunoco up on Ortonville Road by 75. By I-75, we have a mobile gas station on Satchaba. We have the one that's being renovated right there, Walden and Satchaba, the Shell. We have the Kroger gas station. We have the Wow gas station on Satchaba. And we have the Citgo at the corner of Satchaba and Maybe. That's 10 gas stations. We also have 6 gas stations that are within a 2.5 mile radius that service our community, that are our main roads coming into Independence Township. We have the Shell gas station and the BP gas station right there at Andersonville Road in Dixie. We have a BP just north of this project, which is a BP also right there on 75 and Dixie Highway. We have the Kroger gas station on Davisburg. We have 2 Citgo gas stations on Satchaba at the corner of Walton. There's 2 right next to each other. So totally we have 16 gas stations to service our communities. Do we really need another one? Probably not. And the biggest thing, I guess, like Tasha was saying, it's the health and safety of our community. Do we really need another one? There are definitely traffic concerns. My grandson goes to Springfield Christian, and I know right now there's construction, so it's terrible. But even when there is no construction, during high peak hours, there's a lot of traffic there. Can you imagine what this mega gas station is going to do to that intersection as people are getting in and off I-75? I ask you to say no to the Red Barn project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address to the board? Please come to the podium. Anyone online that would like to address to the board? Okay. Moving on. We now have a public hearing. We have a presentation and report by Trustee Moraco. Are you ready?
Well, it was supposed to be made by our Vice Chairman, Jerry Fisher, who isn't here, so.
We can maybe wait and we can move it, or we can postpone it at the next meeting. It's up to, what do you think?
I mean, is it possible, let me,
Can
can we
wait.
try to get a hold of them and slip it in somewhere, since we're not requiring action? How does the board feel about that? Or
I
I
feel
can
like-
get up there and go through it. I mean, we're not asking for action, we just wanted to make the point, but I think it's a valid point, you know?
You wanna make
If
the
somebody
point?
can fire the PowerPoint up for me, I can do it.
Brian, can you help us with the presentation, if you don't mind, please?
It's highlighted text, and there's not that much of it, so it should be pretty easy to just
That's
slap
fine.
on through it, you know?
Maybe I'm gonna go sit over there. I wanna see the presentation. I'm gonna sit over there to see the presentation.
Got a lot of people from our committee here, but nobody jumping at it.
He did tell you he was
Yes,
loading
he
it?
did.
Okay.
Yep. So, since Jerry's not here and I didn't prepare anything, I'll give you a little synopsis of what the objective of this was from, the Residential Open Space Advisory Committee. We're, basically, we've been looking at some ordinances, opposed to writing new ordinance, a lot of the thought was that we believe that there's a lot of ordinances we already have that either are too vague or leave too much flexibility or aren't specific enough. And instead of trying to rewrite ordinances, we felt that by inserting some words and then trying to get everybody to kind of follow and regurgitate these goals and objectives, that would help us maybe be able to defend more preservation and give us the ability to do is this set up then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So basically, we're talking about what we started with as a project as the Open Space Committee was looking at the PUDs and the PROs and the cluster options. Those are the things that everyone talks about. The master plan is our protective document of the township. But as some of the people in the room know, that when someone asks the township to allow them to do a planned rezoning overlay or a planned unit development, that takes the baseline of the ordinances out of play, and it becomes you're able to then negotiate with the developer how you want the project to go. So it's because it's not in compliance with the ordinance, or it's possibly a multi-use project, like the one across the street, where then you get to negotiate with the developer what you want to do. Dick, you correct me at any time if I'm wrong.
I'll probably have to.
Okay. But anyway, so what we felt is that that's where people feel that we haven't negotiated well enough or got better setbacks or done some other, maybe we could have negotiated some more green space or adjusted the density. And those are things that we can negotiate in these planned redevelopment situations. So we started with that, saying, well, we would like to propose that there be more emphasis on preservation and land and wetlands and whatnot, and also work towards setting a baseline. So in, say, in a PUD, there is no minimum setback from the road or minimum from surrounding properties, but there is in the underlying zoning. So as a board, as a committee, we felt that if we could put some convince the board and the planning commission or to put some guidelines in or some baselines to start with, then we wouldn't be starting from the property line. So concentrate more on a minimum setback, minimum buffering and things like that, and then negotiate to the center, if that makes sense to people. So that's kind of what was driving this. I wasn't at the last meeting when this was approved, but I did read it. But so basically, this is a section that it tells you about the intent, and I don't know how detailed we want to really get into things, but whatever just happened there. Trying to get to this arrow here. Okay, there we go. All right. So, planned unit development, it gives you the intent of the basically, it's the provisions of this division provide enabling authority and standards for the submission, review, and approval of applicants for planned unit developments. And in this, it gives you some guidelines encouraging the use of land in accordance with its character and adaptability. Here's where we added something: conserving open space, natural resources, and energy. We want to put more emphasis on open space in the ordinances themselves. Preserving historic resources, encouraging innovation of land use planning, those types of things. So there's already language in there that we believe preserving historic resources and encouraging innovation things. It's just a matter of how we interpret it and then how we require, we put that emphasis on the developer to meet those requirements. So there's a lot in here that already exists. PUD regulations, this goes through what it takes to qualify for that, and like, an applicant for a planned unit development, which would be like across the street, must demonstrate all of the following as a condition to be entitled to the planned unit development. And again, they ask us to ask for a planned unit development. We don't put that out there for them. So this was a change here. Grant of the planned unit development will result in long-term preservation of open space, natural resources, and features to the extent development remains feasible with priority on setbacks and one of the following. So, you know, people have land rights. The planning commission would, you know, follows a guide that you can't refuse a person a reasonable use of their land or a reasonable return on their investment. Those are two guiding principles that the planning commission also needs to consider. So you can't just be like, we don't want it. You know, there's other, and they have rights. A recognizable material benefit to the ultimate user of the project and the community where such benefits would otherwise be unfeasible and unlikely to be achieved without application of a planned unit development. So again, a property that's got multi-zoning, that we want to clean it up, put a nice project together, compile it all, that's what that's getting at. The long-term protection and preservation, it used to say of natural resources and natural features, but the emphasis is on historical.
Jerry will be here in 3 minutes.
Okay. I'll let him take the glory at the end then. I'll keep going. So any questions or complaints, he'll be here for
There you go.
those.
You can answer the questions.
So they changed this to be focused more on historical resources and historical features of significant quality and quality in need of protection and preservation on a local, state, and national basis. Some of these are other guidelines. It's got to be consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare of the township. It should not, the density should not result in an unreasonable increase in the need or burden upon public services, those types of things. Here, the proposed development should not result in unreasonable, negative, or aesthetic economic impact upon surrounding properties. That was added to emphasize the aesthetics of it. Key thing, they need to be under single ownership if people don't know that. So if you're taking a multi-use property, you can't have a bunch of piecemeal developments all arguing over who the HOA is, who's taking care of the roads, all that. It's supposed to be managed under one person when we do an assemblage like that of a project. There's design standards. These are the sizes for the different zonings for residential. Let's see where else they made some changes. Okay, here, the Township Board in its discretion after recommendation by the Planning Commission shall resolve all ambiguities as to applicable regulations. However, significant setbacks, open space, and landscaped areas adjacent to streets, roads, and highways shall be established and maintained as part of the planned unit development. So that clearly was the ticket to the significance of larger setbacks and open space and buffering surrounding properties is why that language is being recommended to be added. To the maximum extent feasible, the development shall be designed so as to preserve open space, natural resources and features, as well as historic resources and features. In the interpretation of this provision, open space, natural and historic resources or features may be impaired or destroyed only if it is clearly in the public interest to do so. So, again, just intervening the word open space, trying to drive that narrative so that when developers and people that come to the township to invest, they can continually keep seeing these words of what our goals and objectives are. Ta-da!
Hi, Sam.
Hey.
Don't sit down.
You stand by me in case you want to, if you want to describe this, Jerry. But so these are the things that needed to be done. The perimeter setbacks and berming is found to be necessary by the Township Board for the purpose of buffering and development in relationship to adjacent thoroughfares surrounding property. See illustrations of designs. That's in there. So again, we're working towards trying to buffer the roads. Idea, get these bigger developments off the street, more hidden, more concealed from the road. Let the denser developments be more to the inside core of the project, I believe is the intent. Let's see, here in context, it says, if the planned unit development project includes non-residential uses adjacent to district authorizing or otherwise apply, and or if the project is larger than 1 acre in area, such perimeter setback should be established with the dimension from the property line greater than covered, otherwise apply, and up to 100 feet in the discretion of the township board after recommendations from the planning commission. So this is establishing a baseline on setbacks from the road. Which a lot of it was all up to interpretation and negotiation, so that's where this is being driven from. This is some changes to the procedure and review and approval process prior to the submission of an applicant. For planned unit development approvals, the applicant with appropriate experts shall meet with the director of the building department, planning, and DPW departments of the township, and a representative of the planning commission. That must have been missed in there, which was why it was added. So that's an important part of it, to get everybody together to talk about the projects before too much money's spent on them, to make sure they're gonna be compatible. A separate delineated specification of a deviation from this ordinance with each stated in a separate bullet point. So the point of this is that when they come to the planning commission and make their presentation, we believe that it should be outlined with bullet points exactly what is not in compliance, that would be in compliance, or what you're doing to modify those separate things, because that's right now missing from it. So we don't really get to see the line items of what deviations are being made in the negotiations that you could list, you know. Let's see. Part of the community impact statement shall be submitted upon the direction of the planning commission or township board, or as part of the application to the 25-acre minimum applies a detailed landscape plan, including landscaping to remain or be established in the setbacks area. So that's just making sure that that's part of the proposal. Don't know if was there more than that, Jerry? Do you know?
I think so. I think that's it.
So not a lot, but we felt it's significant, and if it's followed, if it was used as a guide, if this is what the people coming here to invest see in advance, hopefully then it'll be easier to follow that guideline. Do you wanna say something?
If I may?
Sure,
I will
continue the.
relinquish this position to Jerry.
Yeah, I will let Jerry finish the presentation first, and then we open for questions, okay?
Well, my apologies for being late. I'm an old man, and the meetings always started at 7, so.
In the 80s.
Yeah. They never asked me to change it. So. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and it's awfully nice to see everybody again. And as a representative of your residential open space committee, I'm here to fill in some blanks and talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is zoning. Shows you what a pervert I am. And specifically, I want to talk to you about the PUD ordinance, as Sam has just outlined here. And many years ago, Mr. Carlisle here and I wrote the PUD ordinance with the planning commission and so forth. I don't want to even mention or think about how long ago that was. But so what were we thinking at the time? We basically included very broad discretion for the township. And so why would we do that? Because with discretion, we had the ability to negotiate and extract things that were really beneficial as a trade-off for certain give-ups. And that worked really well. It was a powerful negotiating tool. And as an example, and Oakhurst turned out really, really as a splendid development, and that was one of our PUDs. Now, consistent with the mission of our Open Space Committee, we thought it would be really appropriate to try to do what we could to provide for even better development potential in the township. Now, we have been working hard on identifying property to acquire. We've been there, we have a whole committee on that, and they have been walking properties. We have invited a representative from Springfield Township, from city of Rochester Hills, and from Oakland County to speak to us about that subject, and that has been extremely helpful. We've treated it very seriously. But of course, we don't have a budget for acquisition at this point. And people are actually walking properties and doing a lot of work, but they don't know whether money would be available. We know that there is some interest in acquiring the so-called Deer Park down on Clarkston and Eston Road. Thank you, and we'd be happy to be involved in that if you'd like us to. I mean, that would be a good thing if we could be involved, and we're happy to do it. But in addition to acquiring property, we've also, consistent with the bylaws, also looked at other types of proposals we could make to the board. We know, obviously, we can't adopt any regulations, and technically in zoning, the planning commission can't really adopt regulations, but they can recommend them to the township board to be adopted. And in many instances, in something like this, we thought it would make sense to approach the board initially to make sure the board thought this was a good concept, a good idea, and if so, the board could refer it to the planning commission for full discussion on this. And so we have started with what we think is a good approach to this. It's a win-win for the township, where we would have more open space in a development if we adopted some of this, and there would be more attractive developments in the township. There's very little doubt about that if we were able to put something together that was reasonable and workable and receptive by developers. And we thought about the idea of just giving the board concepts, general concepts, which is one approach to this kind of thing. But I don't know how we could communicate all of these details to the planning commission so that they could take them up and make a recommendation. So we thought we would give them something to chew on and work with here. And there are many aspects of a PUD that are beneficial and allow flexible development. I mean, and most of them are on the internal portions of the property. For example, density. In a PUD, you can allow bonus density. Clustered development. You can allow development to be more clustered. Mixed uses, major thing that a PUD can offer. And we don't have any thought of modifying that type of advantage. But there are two particular types of regulations, and I know Sam went through all the details, and I can just put them into two categories that I think are relevant. One is to remove the complete discretion that we granted earlier. And this signals to designers of projects, and then indirectly to the planning commission, although the planning commission is wise and has wise leadership, that we want to address the buffering of setbacks and buffering of projects from the roadways. And this, the developers when they don't see any specific regulation in the ordinance, they don't think it's important. And so they design the project in a way that ignores as much as possible. Of course, you know, they're designing it for their clients, and so they're gonna design it with as much as possible. But if we have some teeth in here, something more specific, they may be more inclined to give us more a concession. And I know that there was Sam went through that one regulation that allows setback up to 100 feet. What does that mean? That's 3 feet. You can put, 3 feet is up to 100 feet. And so we think that it might be appropriate to be more, to give them a clear signal that we're really serious about this. Also, encouragement for more open space and vegetation as part of the trade-off for flexible development. This achieves beautiful development in the township. Beautiful development translates into higher property values. Higher property values goes into Paul's cash register. So, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we've taken the initial step to provide these specific amendments. One conceptual point that I have to acknowledge here, and that is that we're the Residential Open Space Committee. So we approached this from the standpoint of promoting open space. And so, and we acknowledge that there are other relevant trade-off considerations. And so, what we want to do is get involved in the process, if you'll allow us to, sit down with the Planning Commission, with Mr. Carlisle and Brian, and try to work out something that, any adjustments that even the thing out, and trying to keep as many open space mandates as we can. And so we're asking the board, not to make any decisions on specific provisions, but just say, do you like the concept? And if you do, send it back to the Planning Commission, and with the direction of, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Sure.
Thank you, Sam, for putting together. And before, I just want to point out that I want to thank you so much for your work and the open space community. And I know during the last couple of years, the board was very open to work with you guys, and it worked really good. During our partnership, we got like 39 acres for Clintonwood Park. We add actually new green open space for our parks, and that's very nice. And currently also the committee for Parks and Rec, I'm working to see what they're gonna do for that 39 acres that we purchased, the township board with recommendation of the open space. So we have been done already positive things that impact, a positive impact for the township. Okay, I know someone would like to say a few words. Excuse me, yeah. Yeah, you have to come to the podium and state your name and address. You just wanna make a comment for the presentation.
So Shannon Tiller, 9368 Oakmont Drive. Question in regards to the one section that was crossed off at the beginning of this.
That way for Mr. Fisher, that was. Yeah.
Regarding the natural resources and wetlands that were crossed off.
Yeah.
Why is that crossed?
Well, it's really rather, shift down, I better go.
Yeah, yes, please, that would be nice.
And you see, we crossed it off down here, but we made it stronger because we put it into the lead-in language. So down here, it could have been, a PUD is good if it meets one of the following. So natural resource preservation was only one of possibilities. Up here, we're saying that it has to preserve natural resources and features.
And sorry, one other thing. He mentioned the deer park, and the assumption, I believe, is that there's nothing going on with that. Is that correct?
Which, what are you talking about? Which?
The
Yeah.
deer park on North Eston and Clarkston?
Yeah, no, nothing is going on there.
Nothing's
That's-
going
yeah,
on.
nothing's going on, yes. At this point, no. Okay, thank you. Treasurer Brown.
I'll just make a point for anyone driving by and seeing stakes in there with pink flags on them. They're staking the tree stumps so they don't smack the mower blades, because there's caretakers there that cut those fields and they look beautiful. That's what those are. They're not, they would look like someone's staking things out. They're just staking out tree stumps. So,
Thank you, Paul. Okay, moving on. We now have carryover or postponed agenda items. Consent agenda. Request to approve the Board of Trustees regular minutes of September 10, 2024. 2, request to adopt the resolution number 2024-022, Independence Township Public Road Special Assessment District 2024 number 2 for repaving public roads. Spring Lakes North, excuse me, I jump to request, sorry, apologize for that. Request to approve the September 17, 2024 check round including ACH $1,728,180 and ratify the September 13, 2024 payroll of $349,042.62. 3, request to adopt the resolution number 2024-020, 2025 Board of Trustees regular meeting schedule. And 4, request to approve the amendment taxable value on the 2024 tax rate request form L4029, and then request to approve the master service agreement for the flock group A and C. I need a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda, the consent agenda as presented.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on, regular business. Request adopt the resolution 2024 or 2021, our assessor, Kim Findley. Is Stephanie also coming up at the podium, right? Okay, good.
She wouldn't miss it for the
Sure.
world.
It's also Stephanie Marita, attorney. Okay.
Good evening, Township Board. We have received, the township is in receipt of 2 requests for repaving special assessment districts on public roads. So I think I have some photos here to show you first. The first district we're referring to as 2024-1, should you opt to move forward with this. Both developments are north off Mabee Road and west of the Fountains Golf Course. So first we will be addressing Sheringham Woods, which is this area right here. A close-up of the district map, proposed district map. And they have supplied us with pictures of what their roads currently look like.
It's still good. What are you talking about?
Good for off-roading.
Yeah.
So they have submitted petitions that represent 66.71% of the total lineal road frontage within this proposed district, expressing interest to move forward. The township would be acting as a bank only. The HOA representatives are here tonight. Ross Dickinson is representing Sheringham Woods, and he can speak also to the interest of this. They've already done some repairs. They will be coming back in the spring, hopefully, to kick this project off and do a mill and fill. The benefit of this is that for the HOA to do it themselves, it's about a half or a third of the cost of RCOC to go in, and they tear everything out and start from scratch. So the HOA has the option to go in, mill and fill, do their own repairs, and just put on 2 new inches of asphalt for this development. So what we have before us tonight is a resolution to set the first public hearing to establish the boundaries for a special assessment district that encompasses Sheringham Woods subdivision. 55 parcels, there's 1 park parcel that's not accessible, so When we get to the process of the special assessment roll being established, it will be divided amongst 54 taxpayers. Stephanie will give you a brief rundown, a brief reminder of all the steps involved that we will have to go through for these 2 SADs. So I'll step aside for a moment and let her refresh you on that.
So this is the super exciting part of the evening. I mean, after Mr. Fisher's presentation, I don't know how I can follow that up. But special assessment districts are generally a 2-part process. You have this initial presentation to set the first public hearing where you establish the district. Cost estimates are provided to the public. The public has the ability to come in at that hearing and then protest in person the formation of the district itself. Assuming there's enough interest and you feel comfortable with moving forward, then you set it for a second hearing, and at the second hearing is when the assessment roll is actually approved for the special assessment district. And at that time, you'll have more formal costs, and the roll will be spread so everyone will be able to tell how much will be assessed against their own property. There's a reason for the 2 different hearings. Some communities handle these differently, where they may try to combine both hearings into one. We recommend against that. We suggest that you have 2 separate hearings, so you can find out if there's an issue with the formation of the district itself and enough people protesting the formation of the district that may affect whether or not you want to proceed with actually having a special assessment roll and then being placed in a position where the township would have to defend a special assessment roll if a lot of people are protesting it. Kim has provided you with a great, very detailed description of the notices that have to go out, when they have to go out, where they have to be published. I'm not going to repeat all that here tonight, but if you do have any specific questions about the procedure, which will be the same for this special assessment district and the one that Kim will be introducing next, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Anyone in the board that would like to?
I do.
Trustee Morocco?
I don't know whose question it is. I got some questions though. So I am concerned that I like the fact that we're allowing them to save half the money by being their own general contractor, but being your own general contractor often leads to its own set of problems. So I want to make sure that there's safeguards in place, like, who's approving the construction plans, if there is any construction plans? For the process that they're doing, the curb and gutter, the basins, everything that's tied to the road, who's looking at that? I mean, besides a homeowner saying it looks like the road needs to be replaced, who's the authoritative body?
The HOAs have already contracted for engineering plans and specifications, and those are also needed to determine how long we can spread this assessment over, which is based on the engineer's life expectancy of the roads and the improvements that they dictate need to be made. So they've given the HOA reps the specifications that they recommend, and they can speak to some of those if you would like. And then the HOA is responsible for approving them alongside with RCOC that these are done to their satisfaction. They have to sign off before we can issue any checks for the payment to the contractors.
All right, so I know that Spring Lake hired a contractor, I believe, to do the core samples. Sheringham's using old core samples, which the sub-base should be the same. That's a savings to them. I'm not quite sure how, saying that that we're gonna amortize the payments over the expected life of the asphalt is sketchy to me, because that's a pretty open-ended question. So, as you said, so if an engineer says the road's gonna last 10 years, we can go up to a 10-year SAD. What if,
On public roads, yes.
and is that the cap? What is the cap that an engineer could, this is, his interpretation, the road's gonna last 15 years, so you can take out a 15-year loan. Like, what's the assurance for the residents that and I know they hired an engineer if that's all there is, but how does that work? That you're basing the payment based on a educated guess at best?
I can't speak on your behalf, but typically the board will take the lower end of the life expectancy and utilize that number. Stephanie may have more experience in this than I do, but if they say, generally they give you 10 to 12, 10 to 15-year life expectancy if you do a 2-inch mill and fill. Spring Lake North, they're going to be doing a 4-inch mill and fill with a 15 to 20-year life expectancy. From
Well,
what I
and they've,
understand.
that original road was put in the early 90s. So, it's lasted quite a while. I've never done an SAD, so that's why I'm trying to get to, I want to make sure that the residents are protected from themselves making a mistake. And then I want to make sure that there's somebody that I don't feel comfortable loaning money on a project that isn't going to be inspected by someone who's going to stand behind the inspection. So I'm not going to take an asphalt company's word that the road's going to be good. So I just want to make sure that that safeguard is in place before we loan them money, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a concern with any road construction project that any municipality would be involved in, is you don't know if it's actually gonna last as long as they say it's gonna last. Sometimes roads fail. That's what bonds are for from the contractor. So hopefully the HOA is getting that, and yeah, they're indicating they are, and you get those insurances basically from the contractor if there is a problem and it has to be repaired, that there's a way to be able to pay for it.
Yeah, and I just, it's a lot, it's a couple $100,000, so I don't, I want to make sure that they have contracted someone to do the compaction test as they're doing it the way that you're supposed, that the county would be doing it if the county did it, that we're not cutting any corners and oversight and inspections to save them money, only in the going directly to the contractor phase, so that.
Right, I mean, just keep in mind, these are still public roads, they're not private roads. And so our COC, the road commission, is still gonna be involved in this project and making sure that the roads are built according to their specifications as well. So there will be some oversight from the county to a certain extent, but I believe the subdivision representatives can, if you're interested, can probably give you more explicit details on the entire process that they've gone through already,
Right.
and what they're expecting.
And the reason I bring that up is that we had a subcommittee meeting with some of us who feel that, and this was not exposed, but explained in an earlier meeting, that if the residents are gonna pave the county road for the county, that the county should have a minimum responsibility to ensure that they're put in correctly, at a minimum. It doesn't sound like the county's even doing any of the engineering, like they're just, not involved. That's what scares me a little bit. It's one thing having somebody else fix your roads for you, but you should if you're gonna claim them and say they're still our roads, then you should put some skin in the game and make sure at least that the homeowners are having, they're not being taken advantage of and that's getting put in correctly. So I don't know if those safeguards are in place, but that's, I think that's important.
I think those are really great questions, and I think what may be helpful for the board is if staff were able to provide the township board with a memo on maybe some of the procedures that go on with the road commission. I don't want to speak out of turn. I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the subdivision representatives and what their conversations have been so far. But I'm fairly certain we could probably get a communication from the road commission to be provided to you before the first hearing that would explain what the road commission's expected involvement would be in both projects.
Okay.
Paul?
So, Sam, you mentioned that you hadn't been involved in a special assessment before. None of us have been involved in one like this. And I want to kind of go backwards a little bit. The township acting as the bank first came up as an idea when we did a private road a few years back in Fendera to do the paving and repaving. It was actually one of my neighbors, Jeff McGee, who sat on the, you know Jeff, he sat on the ZBA for 20 years. He came and said, why does the township have to be involved? When government gets involved, it costs a lot more. And so when the road commission's involved, no one wants to do their deal because these guys talked to them and it was 20,000 or more per house. The numbers are huge, and this was the idea to come up with something out that was thinking out of the box that gave residents a chance. And while I understand and appreciate, you know, Sam's concern about making sure things are done right, there'll come a time when Sam's not on the board, and the whole idea is, how good is this board at putting in roads, or the township in putting in roads? We don't have any roads, and we're not responsible for roads. And so if we go down the path of saying, well, we want to be more involved, now we're driving up the cost. Now the whole idea with this is that we're going to act as the bank, and we're not going to be responsible for how the roads turned out. That was the going-in proposal to these neighborhoods. You guys have to take the ball and run with it. The road commission is going to do a little bit of looking at what's happening, but you're better off when you have someone not involved who doesn't do roads. We don't do roads. And so the whole idea is, we're just the bank. And so this is the first time we've done one like this. We did one on a private road. That went really well. It came in under budget by 300 grand on a $1 million project. And so we were happy with that. But I wanted to sort of clarify a little bit. The whole idea is, we don't want to be involved. I have the floor.
Yeah.
We don't want to be involved, and if they're happy with that and get their roads done, and the road commission's happy with it and okays it, great. So we're just trying to find a way to have some of our neighborhoods be able to get repaved in a time when costs are through the roof and they can't find that option anywhere else. So that's the intent of what we're trying to do.
Ron?
I
Thank you,
guess, I just had a couple of questions. I don't know if it's for the legal or for the community anyway, but I guess one is, you picture your whole subdivision as being paved. Is all the streets being paved, or is there certain spots that are being skipped?
Yeah, you can come to the podium, please. State your name and address. Are you coming?
Hello, Ross Dickinson. I'm the president of the HOA, 5775 Belshire Lane. So we had the county come in and do a SAD assessment in 2019. And the numbers they gave us were staggering. They were like $17,500 to $20,500 per home. And nobody was for that. It was dead in the water before it even, got to the people's homes. And so we decided that we know that the roads were deteriorating. What were we gonna do? And when this program presented itself, Paul came to our HOA meeting and he introduced the program to us. And so we assessed basically what we could do with that, because what they were telling us is we could figure out solutions that are unique and to our individual problems and present them to contractors and see what we need to do to resolve our particular problems. And right now we're investigating whether it's going to be 2-inch primary with some areas that are 4 inches. The engineering company we went with, we hired because we want to back ourselves up as well. I mean, because this is not what we do every day. And the engineering company we picked was Keeft Engineering, and they were part of the original development plans of the road. So I'm talking with a 29-year engineer who was a brand new engineer back when the roads were first developed. And so very familiar with the structure of the roads. During that assessment in 19 from the county, they took core samples, and most engineering firms will charge you $4,800, $5,000, whatever, to come out and take core samples. And we FOIA'd that from the county and got the core samples, so we got that data and saved that money. Of course, we're going to try and save money. We're going to try and do it as inexpensively as possible. There's some fine line there between what the homeowners will accept and they'll vote for and what they won't. And so they weren't going to go for a county SAD where they come in and tear everything out and replace everything brand new for a high price tag. And so there's got to be that lower option to come up with a solution. I know that at any given time, my belief is that there's about a third of the homeowners that are not gonna vote for this. They're either, ready to move, die, whatever the options are, but they don't wanna put any more money into our roads. And so we barely have 2/3 at any given time, in my estimate from what I'm seeing, that we get support for road development. And so the over 50%, to qualify for a SAD, we can turn it into a green light with about 10% over, maybe 15% over, but then we still have to play with that price tag for getting people to go with this. And this is a great opportunity with this SAD development program to fix our roads. And so I'm all in on this because I don't see any other solution for fixing our roads in and around Clarkston. And I know some of them are really a lot worse shape than ours, but the top part of our roads is deteriorating. And when that happens, the water soaks down and starts freezing and expanding and cracking the base. And so it's not much longer after the top goes that the rest of your roads are going to start going. And that's when you're getting into the big ticket money. And you're going to run into the same problem where nobody's going to want to pay the bill. So we are working with engineering. My goal in this is to definitely have somebody do the density testing and to look at what's going on. It's either going to be the engineering company or I'm going to talk with somebody at the county to see if they can come out, because we've been doing all the legwork for it, and hopefully you guys can fund it. And if you do that, well, then maybe we can at least get them to throw a density tester and an engineer or their road inspector out on the scene and throw in their 2 cents. But that has to be a request from us, perhaps a request from somebody on the board here that knows anybody with the road commission. I think it's a great concept. We're the two homeowners here, or the two subdivisions here. We're at the leading edge, so we're doing it meticulously, methodical, so as not to make mistakes as we go. But it's still possible. I mean, that's not what we do for a living. So we got to bring all minds in on this in order to do it successfully. But we want to see other roads. We want to set the good example as well, so that other communities can follow us, other HOAs and other roads and stuff within the township.
I see. All right.
Well, part of my question was, you depicted a picture of your whole subdivision, all the roads. Are all the roads being done, or is there certain spots you're skipping?
All 3 roads, yes, sir. Trust, I don't want to do this every year or multiple years in a row. It's one fell swoop, get them done. And because we were leading up to this, over the past 2 or 3 years, we've been taking budget money and repairing our curbs and the cement that was cracking and sinking around our drains. And so we've been preparing for something like this over the past 2 or 3 years. And when we knew this program had existence, this year we went for a big push to get all our cement work done, so that next year, if this goes through, we're talking a potential June after the school gets out, a 1 or 2 day project where they come in and they mill, they fill, and the curb and drain structure is already ready for them just to go right up the middle and do the work. So all the cement will be prepped this year and prior with the funds that we had available. Sometimes it was 1 drain, sometimes it was 3 drains, at $1,500 a pop to get them done. But we want to slowly keep the place from deteriorating.
Okay. Trustee Morocco.
Just for clarity, I mean, I want to make it's clear that I'm in support of this. I've been an advocate for this paving issue we've been having, but I definitely disagree with the fact that we shouldn't play any part in it.
Mm-hmm.
We've, for way too long in this township, not paid attention to roads and stormwater management because we don't want any responsibility to it, so we just don't get involved. But in my opinion, I think the residents think there's a certain amount of public trust that should go with the township being the watchdog. I don't want to warranty your road, I don't want anything to do with your road, but I'm not in good faith going to say that a homeowner should spend $200,000 with no safeguards in place to see that they're getting value. The roads keep failing, so the pennies it costs for a third party to make sure you're getting your money's worth is valuable. That's just common sense stuff. And I don't take any responsibility for it, and I won't. But I do take responsibility to make sure that we're making sure that you're protecting your other residents, because we're talking to you, the president, we're talking to other presidents. All those people aren't here in this room, you know what I mean? You're representing them, and I'm representing them, and I just wanna make sure that it's clear that I think that it would be very foolish for us to, lend money on a project that isn't proven to meet the standards of the intent that the residents are asking us to loan them money for, and that's all I'm saying. Now, how you, and I think the county should pay for it personally, but that's all I'm saying, is that you've got, somebody needs to be making sure that a subcontractor is doing exactly what you were promised, and that you're gonna be spending a decade paying for, so that we don't, because even if we're not involved, people are gonna think we are involved, or we should have done something, or we should have made sure it was done right. That's what really happens. So that was my whole point to that, and I'm glad that you're gonna consider that. I think that the township itself, whether it's the supervisor or whoever, on recommendation of members of this board before, should pursue a minimum of the engineering participation of the county. It's their road. Yes.
If I can speak just on a couple points. Our COC has given them permission to perform this improvement, and they also are requiring them to pull permits. I will reach out to them along with these two gentlemen and find out what inspections come with those permits, and we'll have that ready at the first hearing.
And I clearly understand what you're saying. They're giving them pro permits, but it's their road.
Correct.
And guess what happens when it fails? The county's not gonna do anything about it. They're gonna just say, well, pay again for another 10 years and do it again. If they had any responsibility for the roads, it would be different, but they clearly don't. So I'm glad they're, let's just see how it plays out. I just wanna make sure
And the
that
plus
that's
side
clear.
for this one is they're estimating a little over $2,000 per household versus the $17,000 to $20,000 originally quoted by our COC. So that's an example of the benefit to this.
Yep. So
These
with that kind of
residents.
savings, I think that the small amount to make sure it gets done right is really pennies that we're talking about, but to make sure that when you get done paying for it, it's still, you get a few more years out of it after that,
Good points.
Yeah, good points.
Ron's got a question.
Sure. Trustee Ritchie.
Just get to the numbers a little bit. For paving the road, it says the township's 25%, that we're talking about kicking in from the road improvement fund is $48,573 and change, and which is close to the $50,000 maximum. But farther back up, it talked about for the drains and curbing and stuff, that the township also kick in 25% on that, which would be $5,250, which would put them over the $50,000.
Okay.
So
Treasurer Ron.
the the first piece of that is this year. So if we approve this, that would be funding for next year when this project is done.
But
So
it's
they've
still,
got- they've
still
got-
the same project, and we talked about it being project now, oriented
I think
now.
it was annually.
But we also
Ron.
talked about doing more. The neighborhood road improvement project says the board can go over that a little bit, up to 100,000. Now, there's two projects that are happening, so we'll have to look at that, but we have the authority to go over the 50. That was changed 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
All right, I
So-
just bring it up because we talked about 50,000 being the maximum.
I do.
The numbers come out over that. so.
Well,
I know, I
the
just-
HOA has already conducted repairs, and now they're applying for a portion
They've
of the
already
back.
applied for that, yeah.
Yeah, through the NRIP program for the repair portion that their HOA funds paid for. And
I-
then paving and SAD is a separate project.
Jose, if I may.
Yes.
Just quickly,
Trustee
I do
Morocco.
want to confirm that what Paul is saying, I agree that at the last, when we had this meeting, we were gonna do, it was gonna be an annual contribution. So that, I think that does, this year for the curb and storm catch basins, and next year for the road would be, two separate, fiscal years. And the reason I say that is I remember, because the one subdivision over there by Everest Academy, I forget.
Wingate. Wingate, we do it
Wingate.
every year.
They're doing annual or biannual repairs, so it wasn't a full, it wasn't a per project capture But I don't know about maxing out on the full project. I just know that we had multiple years
Right.
we could contribute to the same
I
neighborhood.
just don't wanna get caught in some kind of
Right.
loophole that we weren't planning on, that's why I'm
Right.
bringing it up, so.
No, that's right, you're right.
Good point.
Okay. Anyone else? Ready to make a motion?
Where is it? I don't even see
I'll
it.
move to adopt resolution number, make sure I'm on the right one,
Number one,
number 2024-021, setting public hearing
Oh.
for the,
022.
2024-1 is Sheringham Woods.
021.
yeah, that's the,
Wait, I thought we were on the first one.
That's what's on the MAVE.
Sheringham says 021.
I'm just reading, move to adopt resolution number 2024-021, setting public hearing for the Independence Township Public Road Special Assessment District 2024-1 as presented.
Support.
Okay.
okay. Yes, roll call.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown?
Yes?
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Ritchie?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay,
And then, sir?
yes.
Just one last comment, and we can double check the NRIP program. I believe the way that was set up was, on the special assessments where roads are being paved. Money could be awarded in order based on when it got approved by the county commissioners. And I assume, because we're doing it, the fact that we've now just approved this to move forward, they could then now look at whether or not we'll contribute, and that process could start for next year's contribution. I throw that in there about the timing, because NRIP talks about first come, first served. And so that could be important down the road as more neighborhoods hear about this. Obviously, I think we got plenty of funding for what we're doing on these two projects, but I just wanted to get that to the board.
Thank you, Paul. I remember something like that too. Okay, Kim, let's go for
Okay.
this.
Next, we have Spring Lake North, which is adjacent to Sheringham Woods, to the east. This SAD is a little bit larger, 110 parcels, which is comprised of 2 parks, 3 ITC parcels, if you see the utility easement going through. There's roads that cross over that utility easement. They are not accessible, so the HOA will be picking up the cost to pave that area going over the utility easement. Their petitions represent 68.68% of the total lineal road frontage. Their costs in this SAD are significantly more. They have greater deterioration in this subdivision and more repairs needed that have not yet been addressed. So that's a preliminary boundary map with the 3 ITC areas down here at the bottom. And these are pictures of the roads currently. So again, RCOC approval has been granted. They will have to pull permits, which they're in the process of, and everything else is pretty much identical to Sheringham Woods. Any questions on this project?
Clerk Newbeck?
Have they started with curbs and gutters like the other? Okay, so it'll be a full, you're intending to do that as well?
Yeah, maybe it'll help for some clarification. Ben Hastings, I'm the treasurer for our HOA board. I'm also in charge of the project 5583 Adderstone Drive. Yes, our roads are more deteriorated when compared to Ross's subdivision, Sheringham Woods. The other problem we're facing is deteriorating curbing. Unfortunately, that represents about 40% of our subdivision. And when I say deteriorate curb, what I'm talking about are curbs that are structurally failing or will structurally fail in the next 10 years. What we don't want to do with our project is put this beautiful new layer of asphalt down and then have to cut into it over the next 10 years to replace curbing. So our special assessment district would include a 2-lift asphalt mill and fill, which is 4 inches as compared to Sheringham's, which is 2 inches. It also includes, like I said, the 40% curb replacement. In that proposal, there's also a $50,000 capital reserve fund, so that down the road, as future curbs continue to deteriorate and as we continue the long-term care portion of this project, which is making sure that the roads are properly sealed as they continue to deteriorate, so that we can get the life longevity of 15 to 20 years like the engineers predict. Speaking to Sam's point, we do have an engineer involved. That engineer's name is Jeffrey Hayball from G2 Engineering. In the agenda packet, I believe the geotechnical engineering report was in there. If you just read the executive summary, it basically takes you through what they propose as far as scope, as far as materials, and very important considerations within that report that we need to follow. And one of the things that we initially thought was, okay, this is going to be a 2 to 4 inch mill and fill, or mill and overlay. And the engineers came back and said, well, unfortunately, you missed your window for the 2 inch. So now you're looking at 4. So that's why our price point is significantly higher. There's just a lot more material to take out. The good news is, in our sub, just like Ross's, we have something called deep strength or full depth asphalt. That's important because it allows us to do this kind of project. Some subdivisions built in the late 90s or later don't have that ability because there were different specs, different engineering requirements at that time for the builders. So we're very fortunate there. We do plan to hire G2 for what they call field services. Field services are very important, to Sam's point, because they are the ones that are there monitoring the construction the whole time. So G2 will provide representation at the plant. They'll provide representation at the site. They will look for things like temperatures, density, like Ross was saying. They'll also look for mats, segregation. There's a whole list of technical data that we could go through that they will be testing for every single day. And then there's a log created, and then at the end of the project, they sign off on it. So we do plan to hire them as well, because to your point, I'm not in the asphalt or concrete business. Ross isn't either. We're not even remotely related to that. So it's very important that we do this the correct way, and also important, I think, that we make sure that we provide future HOAs the ability to have a clear path forward for doing projects like this. And so we're trying to be very careful about how we do this. We're in constant contact with multiple departments here at the township. And I'd really like to, on behalf of my subdivision and Ross's, thank all of the employees at the township. Of course, leadership, but a lot of projects like this are really, the workload's really handled by the day-to-day employees. And they've just all been awesome, great, answered our questions. Kim's office especially has been awesome. We appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure so far. So just want to make the point that we are working very diligently to make this cost effective and also protect our homeowners and the township as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. Anyone? Treasurer Brown.
So, this probably come up here at some point, so I just figured I'd bring it up. Relative to the funding for this, so, I have looked at that. In the past, our interest rate on these has been at 6%. That's also where the county's at. Historically, the project done 4 or 5 years ago, probably a third of the people paid immediately, but back then interest rates were at 2.5%. And so 6 didn't seem that good. I think we'll be below 6 out in the marketplace fairly soon. That will, At a 10-year with $1 million or $1.5 million, there's no issues with that. It's a good investment for the township compared to, what we would be doing with the money anyways, but it's important to have the opportunity for the residents. But keep in mind that as homes get sold, while the township does not require these to be paid off, law changed a number of years back that we can't require it to be paid off, only what's due in 1 year. Typically, title companies say pay it off, and I bet you 90% of the time when a home is sold, that's negotiated to pay off the balance. So we're really not looking at a 10-year investment overall. It'll be something shorter than that, and at 6%, that's fair to the residents, because basically the residents are funding this, not the township, because it's taxpayer money. So I just thought I'd put that out there. At these numbers, if we get a project that's $2 or $3 million, then the board will have to consider our ability to do that, if it's a higher amount, of whether we can afford to do it without bonding or something like that. So that's it. Thank you.
Another point I'd like to make too, while I'm up here in regards to the NRIP, I have spoken with Jennifer, Kim knows as well, that's the deputy supervisor. We are requesting and will meet the requirements in the NRIP for the full $100,000 because our project is so large. I'm working to have a final selection of our vendor within the next 2 weeks so that I can give it an accurate number both to the township and to our homeowners. That way, Kim and Jennifer can go through and check all their boxes for the NRIP and then make a presentation to the board for approval in the future.
Okay. Anyone else from the board? Treasurer?
I guess I
Trustee
just went through all your documents a couple times, and I could see in your write-up when you talk to the homeowners, is you were estimating to be like $577,000 project.
Yeah.
Along with your reserve that you want to collect as well. I mean, there's no, I guess what I liked about the other presentation, there was a little summary sheet, so it kind of just outlined all that.
And Kim did ask me for that. I gave her one late last week. That's why it's not in your agenda packet. I want to be very careful that I'm giving accurate data. The reason I wasn't able to get that sooner is because G2's scope of engineering changed, and so I had to go back to all the vendors and say, okay, we need to conform to what the engineers say. So that's been happening over the last week and a half. So as soon as I have that for you and it's an accurate number, I'm sure Kim will hand that out.
Did you just have a ballpark of what the
Yeah,
typical
without
homeowner
without the NRIP funding, all in, it's going to be approximately $961,706.30.
How many homeowners?
104.
Okay.
Yeah, so it takes us past that $7,500 requirement that's in the NRIP. Any other questions?
I'd just like to thank you for putting all the effort into it. I know how hard it is to get anything done, and it sounds like that your due diligence exposed the need for more, which is exactly what we're hoping it would do. And your engineers sound like they're gonna protect you guys, because if somebody would've just came in and sold you a two-inch fill, you'd be doing it in a couple of years again, and that's
Yeah.
exactly why I think that that you gotta get some experts involved, and it'll save you in the long run. But
Yeah.
good job, both of you guys, for being able to assemble this. We've been waiting and waiting for neighborhoods to be able to get this put together. That's why we're sitting on, that we keep putting this money out there up for grabs. And and I said many times, I'd rather spend every penny of it every year. That's the reason we're doing it. Because there's just too many neighborhood roads that are deteriorating and they're just not willing to fix them. So,
Yeah.
good job.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It seems like you're having in touch with my office with Jennifer Spiegel. So anything that we can do for you guys just will help to expedite or anything with the county or anything we can do. So we'll continue helping. All right, I need a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 2024-022, setting public hearing for the Independence Township Public Road Special Assessment District 2024-2 as presented.
Support.
Okay, roll call. Madam Clerk?
Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Ritchie?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes.
And Clerk Newbeck, yes.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
I'd also like to thank Ben and Ross again. They have been absolutely incredible to work with. Thanks.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is
Yes?
one point on
Sure.
this, as we get forward, because it's kind of a learning curve, so we need to keep adding to our toolbox on how we do this. I guess I'd like to suggest that we have, that summary sheet, some format of a summary sheet is part of each package that comes forward in the future. I just think it simplifies it all on one page, what total costs are, what the project is, like how many people are involved, and
Okay.
how much it is per homeowner, so,
Okay.
my
Thank you.
suggestion.
Thank you, Ron. Next, our zoning director, Brian Ockman, which is this request to approve the distribution of the 2035 Opportunity Master Plan.
Good evening, board members. At the August 8th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended to the Township Board that they send this plan out for distribution. The Michigan Planning Enabling Act requires us to send this to neighboring communities, Oakland County, SEMCOG, all the utilities, Road Commission, MDOT, and then we have to wait basically 63 days for any comments to be submitted to us from those jurisdictions. We also have to attend a Board of Commissioners subcommittee meeting at the Oakland County as well. Upon the expiration of that 63 days from hopefully tonight, Planning Commission has to hold their public hearing, and then after the public hearing, they could approve the plan, but they're gonna send it to the Township Board for final approval and a resolution. This was a pretty rigorous update. Mr. Carlisle can go through some of the highlights of the changes that were made to this. We had a tremendous amount of public input. A survey was conducted that we got, I don't know that we've ever gotten so many responses from people, which was great. And the website saw a tremendous amount of traffic because we had a dedicated website to go through the plan. But I'm gonna have Mr. Carlisle first start and talk about some of the significant changes, and then the chairman of the Planning Commission, Bill Scarborough, has a few comments as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, this is yet another update of our master plan, a revision of our master plan. I can't tell you how many of it is for me, but I think it's a lot. But this was another extensive and very rigorous effort that was put forth by our Planning Commission over the last several years. And, it seems like, when we embark upon these, they always seem to take longer than what we originally anticipate. But, there's reasons for that. In 2006, it took 3 years before we finally were able to get it to the board. And that was with public participation. In the 2016 plan, took 2 years, and that was without any public participation. And if you remember, we had the workshop with the board, and we decided that we really needed to have a much more robust, I hate that word, but that's true, but a much more extensive public participation effort than we did in 2016, for a variety of different reasons, but primarily to make sure that, the public had an opportunity to have their input. And that's documented in the plan. There were, workshops, there was the public opinion survey, numerous workshops where they were, small or larger. We even had, people show up at a Friday night football game and interview people, so that we were able to try to get every demographic and segment of the community who wanted to be involved. We also, had a joint workshop with the DDA and the CIA, because these are obviously two very important economic development corridors in the community, and so consequently, we had, you know, a really good workshop with them. We had an open space workshop that ultimately spawned the Open Space Committee. And that was a well-attended and a very well-done workshop with some panel members. I think Mr. Fisher and Sam were part of that. And so, you know, there was a greater effort this time around to be deliberate and to not rush this thing. The other issue, of course, is during this period of time, we had 3 supervisors, and we had changes in this board, not as many, but a lot of changes on the Planning Commission. And so we needed to continue, give those planning commissions their time to get their feet on the ground. Of course, we've had, you know, a very stable group in the last year and a half. And you'll hear from the chairman, Mr. Scarborough, about the work that they've done, which, you know, we purposely slowed it down for them to be able to catch up and have an opportunity to put their thumbprint on this particular plan. You know, I'd like to say that, you know, there were lots of changes, but I'd also like to say there weren't a lot of changes because, you know, this township has been guided by some basic policy premises for many, many years. You know, the sanctity of the water and sewer district being one, the reality of having a major expressway run through us, the long-term desire to preserve both the northwest and the northeast portions of the township in low-density development. A couple of major economic corridors in Sashabar Road and Dixie Highway, which the dynamics of those have obviously changed. We're now back in a redevelopment mode with Dixie Highway, with the recreation of the DDA. So, you know, while the master plan proposes some changes, it also maintains the basic premises of those kinds of policies that have served this community very well over the years from that standpoint. It also recognizes, and I think Mr. Scarborough will probably speak to this, that, you know, there's a changing demographic, you know, that has occurred in this community as well as many others. We don't have as many school-aged children. We would like to. The schools would love us to have more school-aged children, but we're not. And that's really not, that's a phenomenon that is not unique to this community. We have a aging population. Again, not unique to this community. And so some of the types of housing that you've seen over the last 5 to 10 years reflects that changed demographic. So I think all in all, when you review this master plan, you will see that it reflects those changes, but it also maintains some of the basic premises that have served this community, you know, so well for 50 years before I came here in terms of guiding its overall direction. One of the things I think Mr. Scarborough will speak about briefly is that this commission wanted to have a much more effective implementation plan, and that is included in this document also. So they wanted to treat that more or less as a work plan. So from that standpoint, we've outlined for you in the cover memo that was part of your packet a lot of the specific changes, but I think Mr. Scarborough will probably illuminate expand on some of those things that he found most significant.
Thank you. As he said, I'm Bill Scarborough, 5704 Nobile Circle, Chairman of the Planning Commission. In March of this year, the new Planning Commission took its first in-depth look at this proposed new master plan. I call it a new Planning Commission because 3 of the current members were appointed in January and February of this year. 2 others, I believe, were appointed in the last half of last year. The 3 new ones took the first look at the master plan in March of this year, and 2 out of the other 4 had not had a lot of exposure to it prior to that. A lot of work, time, and effort went into getting this master plan to where it is, or where it was in March. And Dick and Brian went over some of that work. We could have assumed that it was acceptable. It was an excellent master plan at that point. But we did not assume it was acceptable. We would not rubber stamp it. Our names would go on this master plan once adopted. So we tackled this task and did a thorough review. What we feel has emerged is a better plan. The plan we reviewed in March had changes from the Opportunities 2030 master plan, but did not really reflect any changes in land uses. It's hard to change planned land uses as the development patterns are pretty much already set in place. Our review has resulted in some minor yet notable changes in land use, and one change which I consider significant in the implementation section. These changes are centered around a couple of basic principles. Number one is promoting open space and preserving natural resources. Number two is providing the possibility of residential development in the Sashabaw Pine Knob sub-area and in the M15 Northwest area. It is our hope that this will accomplish the following, providing for residential development in those areas, slow the spread of commercial office along Sashabaw and M15, encourage repurposing along Dixie Highway and infill development within the town center. And the more land we have available for commercial and office outside of the town center in the Dixie Highway area, the more options we're providing developers. Limiting options will encourage development in already established commercial office districts. Why should we encourage the spread of commercial office when we have existing areas that are available for infill and redevelopment? And the third principle driving these changes is that with the reduction in subdivisions being developed via the Land Division Act and being replaced by a more common approach of condominiums, the responsibilities of HOAs are increasing without monitoring, training, or assistance to these HOAs. Perhaps the township could consider ways to fill this gap and thereby avoid pressure for the township to get involved when private storm systems or private roads are not maintained and eventually result in a threat to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Similar to what you're doing on those special assessment districts, but hopefully maybe formalize it a little more. The noteworthy changes we made are as follows. On the bottom of page 27, we included a comment on providing HOAs with some support. On page 28, the first item under objectives, we placed a little more emphasis on the concept of redevelopment of Dixie Highway. On page 29, the second bullet point under objectives for the historic and rural preservation, we included some language to emphasize preservation of open space and protection of fragile natural resources. On page 37, under the designation of single-family attached residential, we made reference to single-family attached residential as a possible use in planned unit developments in order to encourage residential uses in various districts, overlay districts. We included a new land use called office service residential to allow for the option of either high-density single-family or low-density multifamily in some office service areas. This designation was mentioned on page 74 in the M15 Northwest area and on page 89 in the Pine Knob sub-area. In my opinion, the most significant changes begin on page 122, where we added an implementation matrix. We felt that the master plan did an excellent job of laying out our goals and objectives and our future land use, but left the question of how do we get there unanswered. This matrix is an attempt to establish more specific tasks that will lead us in obtaining these objectives. Once adopted, it is our intent to target specific objectives to get accomplished in the immediate future. It is also our intent to review this matrix periodically to make sure that these tasks are not forgotten and that we are in fact making progress. Some examples of the tasks that we have included in this matrix are incentivize diversity of residential developments to have a variety of sizes, floor plans, elevations, facades, and materials. Conduct study sessions with the DDA and Planning Commission to establish detailed design guidelines for the Dixie Highway corridor. Research lessons learned from previous PUDs and cluster developments and update the zoning ordinance accordingly. Update multifamily housing standards addressing density, setback, and design standards. Revise engineering design standards to include grading regulations. Adopt a tree preservation ordinance. Adopt access management standards. Explore pedestrian median on Dixie Highway. Realign the intersection of Big Lake and Dixie, and improve capacity at the intersection of White Lake and Dixie. Upon approval by the board to distribute this draft, the Planning Commission plans on rolling this out to various other township boards and committees like the DDA, Parks and Recs, Open Space, DPW, and Safety Path. I hope to personally present to these committees and departments and emphasize our desire to increase communications between the Planning Commission and these committees. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
So really what we are asking for tonight is the permission from the board to continue the process of scrutiny and input from this standpoint. It has been the policy of this township for years to have the township board have a formal endorsement or approval of the plan. That is even before the law changed. The law was amended in 2008 to give boards the option. Prior to that, it was not. It was all within the purview of the Planning Commission. But we always gave the board the option of approving the plan, and you always took it. So I don't see any reason why we would want to change that. That's your decision, obviously. But what we're asking for is to have the plan released for distribution for comments, and this has to be done before the Planning Commission can actually hold a formal public hearing. So there's a 63-day comment period to all these agencies and committees that, and we're going one extra step, as Mr. Scarborough indicated. We are actually distributing internally, and I think one of the really great ideas that came out of this plan is to increase the coordination between all of these most formal committees as well as the more ad hoc committees to increase communication between all of these groups. So giving these boards all input into the plan is, I think, is a great step forward. So I will be happy to answer any questions along with Mr. Scarborough and Brian.
Sure, thank you, Dick, and thank you, Mr. Scarborough. Thank you for your work. Anyone from the board? We have a comment or question? Okay, Trustee Samara.
Dick, I got a couple questions about I had called you and talked to you about this, about the North Dixie.
Yeah.
You know, being on the DDA, revitalizing Dixie Highway is what I'm working with a group of people, and we're looking at it as the whole district, from Waterford to 75,
Right.
not just the part that needs to be revitalized. That would be silly, because we don't want to revitalize South Dixie and then have to start revitalizing North Dixie. So we want to do it as at least look at it as a whole.
Mhm.
I think is a smart way for us, since we have a committee of people working solely on that. And I had asked you today about it because I was going through there because I was involved in 3 master plans, I think, in my tenure on the Planning Commission. And we were very specific about when we crossed 75 on Sashaba that the district would look completely different than South Sashaba.
Mhm.
South Sashaba would be walkability, buildings near the road, user-friendly, promote community. North Sashaba would be very discreet, carved into the woods, like Pontiac steel was, like Monarch is way back in there, like that was the characteristic of that. And And when I called Dick to say, I know that we had talked about that on the Dixie Highway end too, because if you look at Dixie Highway and you look at the berm buildings and Thomasville's old, I don't know the name of the new place, but the old timers know, the Thomasville store's got the marsh in front, and the condos are tucked up in the woods, and, you know, it's very similar to the woodlands on North Sashaba, and, you know, moving into a more rural community, but not as, you know, not ours, but heading north, you know. So I guess my question was, is when you read when you read the Pine Knob sub-area guidelines, I didn't see that same type of verbiage in the Northwest guidelines. And from the DDA's point of view, you know, that's what, you know, that's what we've already done there. There's, you know, it's already, everything's far off the road, everything has big setbacks, everything's very discreetly cut into the woods. And I was wondering, you know, there's a paragraph here for Sashaba, north of 75, that says the development was designed to respect the rural character of Independence Township north of I-75 with parking and facilities consciously carved out of the woodland setting as the corridor develops. The existing residential lots along the west side of Sashaba corridor should develop in a manner consistent with office service or single-family attached residential. The architecture and site arrangements of this development should be designed to fold into the landscaping, preserving mature trees and respecting natural resources whenever possible. And that aligns with what I believe that our intent has always been. Maybe I just can't find it, but there isn't any language. Did I not find it?
Page 57.
Page 57, because I want to make sure that,
Yeah, I mean.
you know, that we're on the same.
Yeah, the design objectives there are very similar, although maybe not as extensively stated. But they speak in the Northwest Dixie Highway area to expand non-retail uses such as memory care, medical uses, and alternative housing choices for an aging population. Incorporate uses that will transition between the commercial corridor to single-family residential. Encourage complementary housing options. They may be associated with medical and senior care. Preserve and incorporate natural features of the site while still maximizing investment opportunities and increase pedestrian and vehicular connectivity. So those objectives haven't changed substantially, Mr. Morocco, since the 2016 master plan, with which I believe you are familiar. And so I do think it does reflect that. And then if you look at, you know, the land use concepts for that area, they are all much lower intensity than what you would see south of White Lake Road, which is predominantly commercial, okay? I mean, maybe even south of Deer Hill, but I mean, that area generally is perceived and planned for a lower density type of use.
So I guess what I would say is the paragraph that I read from Sashaba, which is, you know, it's different. This talks of those things. One of the things that I did write down that caught my eye was preserve and incorporate natural features of the site while maximizing investment opportunities. That, I'm not clear what the message is that, you know, how those two meet. That's one, you know, I just want to go through a couple verbiages that I just wasn't sure. That was one of them, like, the other one was that we've, that there's some promises, this is on page 56, there it is right there, that, where is it? I'll probably have trouble finding it because I did it on my home stuff, not here. But there just was some language in here that talked about that type of stuff, that there was promises of compromise, and I just wasn't sure if we need to really say those things, that we want to maximize investment opportunities. Is that different than does that work against us in any way that we're, you know, because when someone says we want to incentivize maximum investment opportunities, to me, that seems like you're trying, you know, that's more for development than preservation. And not to say we don't want to have someone's investment be a good investment, but I don't know if I didn't like the language that to preserve natural resources was in the same line with, you know, maximizing investment opportunities. Seemed like they kind of contradicted each other, or could be worded a little less, because they're kind of hard to work those two out. I had trouble with that.
Can I just comment on that real quick?
Sure. Let's finish. Okay.
I know, but I was just gonna answer. Well, when I read that piece, it talked about, you know, the things we want and said, and still maximize investment. So to me, it was just, it was in there to tell the developers, we want this, but we understand you want that. I didn't see it as just saying, we want to maximize investment, because the word still in there indicates we're doing these things first, but we still want to know that there's some ability for whoever owns the property to maximize investment. So I think the word still was important in that because it's got context.
That's fine. I'm just want to lean more towards the words preservation than maximizing investment is what I'm in the master plan. I'd rather rather than figure out how to make it you know.
This will be coming back to you for approval.
There's I want to make sure and you know, so there's and there might be a difference between the zoning ordinances and the master plan, but on many projects in the 20 years I've been involved, there's been discussion of, you know, like, well, if you don't do this, it could be this. You know, it could, if we don't approve this project, it could be a more denser project by the ordinance. And what I want to make sure is that, whether it's through the ordinance or the master plan, that we take we get those uses out of it being, if you don't do this, it could be this. You know, like if we don't want something that requires a special land use, then we should make it noted that we don't want, you know what I mean? And I'm not, let's say there's no project that I know of about a hotel right now, so I'm gonna use hotel as an example. If there's an area that we don't want a hotel, I wanna make sure that we do something that is really, would not give anyone any encouragement to think that we would allow a hotel, whether it's we rezone we forcefully rezone the property to make sure it wouldn't happen, but with special land use, it always could. But just, I don't like it when, we should approve this because it could be worse. I think I want to try to figure out how do we get the worse option out, so it could be this, and that's all it could be, no worse than that, so that we're not settling because of future development of more density or more, impact could be allowed there. I don't know if that makes sense to what I'm saying, but I just don't like when that's always, I think it's down zoning. You need to, like you've got a lot of commercial that's zoned office, right? So, that we have in our future. We don't want it commercial anymore. We want it office, which is a more transitional zoning and architecture, adjacent to residential. I just don't know what's a better way to make sure that,
I don't think there's anything in the master plan that leads you in that direction. You correctly identified, it's things that are in the zoning ordinance.
Right, and that's right, so that's why it comes up because of this, but if it's not gonna be able to put those protections in here, then I think that those target areas that we have around the township, that we should do something about the zone, work on the zoning ordinances to change those zonings, so that that's not a take this or else you could get this. It's just, this is the most you could get, period, and I don't think we haven't been doing that in my recollection, because we hope that people are gonna comply with our visionary plan and move towards that, but if they.
That's not entirely correct.
Okay.
We have done that.
Well, we have done some.
We actually took on a number of areas where we did downzone property. But you're correct, in recent years, we haven't. There hasn't,
and I only say this because the risk of someone coming in with a project that meets the criteria of the current zoning.
That's correct.
Because we always say, well, they're not gonna probably be able to do it, they'll have to do an assemblage, probably ask for a PUD, or, you know what I mean,
Totally.
for a project, but then there's that underlying thing that we can't stop them
Right.
if they can somehow fit it on a piece of property or make it work. And I think, you know, I just wanna, it's probably not the master plan discussion, but I wanna put more emphasis on identifying those potential projects that could move forward without us being able to control them because they comply, and talk more about downzoning on some of those, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay. Trustee Richie.
Just I guess a side comment to that, Sam, is that, I think that's what, part of the presentation was, I think in the master plan workshops that we had, we took a lot of the commercial areas and introduced, you know, the new, step where you have commercial, residential. So it encourages, instead of, you know, developing it as commercial, it can be residential in some form or format in a lot of those areas. Even if it's, you know, we had, you know, mixed use in those, you know, next to each other. But that was part of getting more residential opportunities in those areas, especially in the northwest areas, I think so.
Yeah, I think the commission correctly observed that, you know, one of our solutions to reduce the amount of commercial was introduce this office service category, which was done quite a while ago. And we have a number of areas that have developed in that manner, but we also have a large amount of area that is a zoned office service that has not developed. And I think the commission, you know, observed the fact that, you know, the office market has been tremendously, it's different now than it was 20, 30 years ago. It's certainly not as a rigorous a market as it once was. And so, again, in keeping with this offering options, but more attractive options and less dense options, they introduced this idea of incorporating in the master plan the opportunity for residential development in office service areas. And I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, obviously it might be slightly higher density residential than you would see in a pure residential area, but it does offer a less intense alternative in our office service areas. So I think that's a good concept, but that has to be followed up with zoning ordinance amendments, as you suggest. So I agree with that.
Right. So what we approving tonight is just a distribution at this point.
That's correct.
Right. That's what we're doing today. We're not making any amendments, any changes right now. I understand. Yes, Trustee Taylor.
Yeah, so this is my first foray into the master plan, and kind of thinking this through and developing my understanding. So this represents the broad vision of the township. It's not going to be precise or overly prescriptive. That's where we rely on the zoning ordinance, and so upon completion of this, is there a process or a structured time in which we review the zoning ordinance and ensure that through the zoning ordinance, the spirit of the master plan is represented, so that we have the areas within the township properly zoned, so we're not inviting developments that are contrary to the vision of the master plan?
Yes, and that is, again, at this commission's initiative, that's why we incorporated a much more detailed implementation matrix. So basically, they have like a 5-year work plan included in the master plan, because, you know, the master plan is supposed to be updated every 5 years, or at least reviewed every 5 years. And this commission wanted to have a lot more detailed work plan included in the master plan. And so, yes, those elements are incorporated in that implementation matrix.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. And I know, like Mr. Scout stated before, we have new members. They saw this different, and then we have, you know, I believe that you guys worked really hard for this, and then now we're in the stage we need to distribute this, and hopefully we'll get more input. So, somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve distribution by the Planning and Zoning Department of the 2035 Opportunities Draft Master Plan to all neighboring communities, Oakland County Planning, Road Commission for Oakland County, Michigan Department of Transportation, and any other party as required by state law, and begin the 63-day review period.
Okay.
Support.
Okay. It's a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Ritchie?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck? Yes, and Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. All right, next, Chief Bishop, please come to the podium. Thank you, Dick. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Mr. Scarborough. Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. Fire department's here tonight to get approval to dispose of an asset. It's a 2014 Ford Expedition that most recently has been serving as our command vehicle. As you might remember, we have the Sprinter van that's being fabricated right now and should be ready to go into service at the end of October. So we'd like to dispose of this asset that no longer has a useful purpose for the fire department moving forward.
Okay, any questions from board members?
Paul, are you selling it?
Yep, it'll go on eBay.
No questions.
Okay, no questions. Okay, somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
To authorize the fire chief to dispose of a 2014 Ford Expedition VIN number 1FMJK 1G5 1EEF 40663, having a cost basis greater than $5,000 in accordance with the township asset management policy.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Will the command vehicle be ready for the open house?
No, it's probably gonna be more towards the end of October,
Okay.
so,
We just need a time to check it out.
yeah, it would've been nice, so. We'll be ready for next year though.
Okay. Rick?
Fire station open house.
Good evening.
Good evening, Rick.
This is here, I'm here today for budget amendment, actually number 29. I know the agenda item says 24, the motion says 29, but it is actually 29, just to clarify the record here. This amendment actually impacts the general and safety path funds. There's three different items here. The first one has to do with the 2023 SEMCOG membership dues. They were budgeted in 2023, but they were never paid for whatever reason. I can't give you a reason why, but they were never paid. Obviously, we paid 2024, and now SEMCOG is coming back and they're asking for the 2023 dues to be paid because we're still participating in that group. After looking at the ledger for 2023 and how we wound up for the year, we actually had $5,296 left over in our membership account at the end of 2023, which basically represents that amount for those dues. The dues actually came in at $5,216. So what we need to do in this particular case to get these memberships paid is we need to do a budget amendment to pull those funds basically forward or back into the budget so that this membership can be paid. That's number one. Number two, due to changes within our investment policy, the fees incurred for banking, a budget amendment is needed to increase bank fees within the Treasurer's Department by $50,000. These fees are offset by the interest income we are receiving. Now, any other further discussion on this? We're gonna have to talk to and defer to the treasurer so he can clarify this, because I can't really go much more into that.
Sure, thank you.
So-
Treasurer Brown?
Thank you, I'll do that real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has a business knows that bank fees, the businesses pay are a cost of doing business. And so, in the past, and when you have a business account, rather than paying interest generally on checking accounts, they give you fee credits. And those fee credits correlate somewhat with where interest rates are, though they're typically below that rate. And the reason you've never seen bank fees in the township's treasurer's financial statements in my time here and before is because the fee credits would always be enough to wipe out the bank fees. Bank fees may look like a significant amount, and that's certainly is a significant amount of money. You have to keep in mind that we have 3 different lock boxes where payments go. And the automation of those processes through the banking system means I have fewer labor hours in my department than they had 30 years ago. And so there's these things make it possible for us to continue to manage growth in the work we have to do, in the number of parcels, the number of tax bills, the number of utility bills, without increasing the number of employees we have. And I think we still have room to expand with that. The reason we've changed this now is because interest rates are so high. And so I've exceeded our interest budget by something well over $1 million this year. Interest rates are really good. Part of why I'm able to do that for this year is because we looked at, instead of the fee credits, which we're paying a little over 2%, and by the way, those credits expire at the end of the year, so you have to time it perfectly or you lose that opportunity. I set up a sweep account that is going into on a daily basis, so it sweeps all the money out of our general account and puts it into a U.S. Treasury investment. So it's the same types of investments that we're allowed to put money into. And so that money goes out at the end of the day and comes back into the account the next morning, and they're paying us 4.5%. So the delta on that is well over 2%. And we're talking about $3-4 million. That money adds up pretty quickly. And so we're paying $50,000 in fees, but I'm going to get $100,000 in interest income. And so the delta on that's probably $50,000 this year we make just by having the sweep account. Eventually, rates are going to come down, and that opportunity will shrink somewhat. But for now, it's working out great, and it's to our benefit. So that's why we're adding these fees and showing them. They've always existed. You've just never seen them before. Any questions on that? Or? I think some board members have seen that before in past years. So, but it deserved a good explanation because that's quite a bit of money for fees. It's not anything new. We're just going to make a little bit more money with that opportunity.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
The third item on here has to do with the safety path. There's a path project out there, Clarkston Road, between Wingate and Sashabaw. It was budgeted for 2024 at a cost of $650,000. Earlier this year, design engineering was approved, but that's about the only thing that's going to be completed this year is the design engineering. The construction of this path won't actually take place until 2025. So in order to keep things right from a budget standpoint, which I'm getting ready to present for the safety path, that $600,000 for construction really needs to be removed from 2024, and we're going to rebudget it again in 2025 where it belongs. And the reason we do that is because when I actually get to the fund balances for the safety path, if you have the project in both places, now you're basically messing with fund balance and you're not getting the proper number. So we need to just do a budget amendment to remove that $600,000 piece of that particular project. Those are the three items that we're looking to amend tonight.
Okay. Any questions for the board members? No? Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2024 budget amendment number 29 as presented.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, Rick, stay here. Please don't leave.
What is that big pile of paper?
Okay.
Chief, because we're going to start with the fire department. So
Fire department, sounds good.
this is going to be our first budget meeting here of first of three. We're going to be covering I don't know, probably 9 or 10 different funds tonight.
Do you have a handout for us, Rich?
Oh, yes, I do. Yep.
Thank you.
That can stay up here. For everybody. Yeah, so earlier today I did send. Oh, you already
If
printed
somebody
one?
else needs it, go ahead.
You can just pass it along. You don't have to. I'll pass it back.
Well, I have extras here.
Oh, okay.
Just in case the audience wants something or whatever, I might have a couple extra here.
Okay.
You got me,
Like,
you
no.
got me on this one. I totally missed that tiny little.
Mine's the Chuck.
He's gonna get us.
Rick.
That was so much to read with the master.
It's just I do have extra copies. I have like 5. Anybody wants an extra jacket or not follow through, or?
I'm the carrier.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. What do you need changes? Oh, stop it. It's very easy. Too bad. All right.
Take a major change right now. So.
I know, that's what he was just asking me.
He was
It's just
like,
like,
yeah,
wait a
we need it.
minute, what are you doing? What are you changing?
It's only $1 million for that.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna start out with fire CIP plan. So basically, our current plan, and it's a 15-year plan, it goes from 2025 to 2039. It calls for about $8.9 million worth of expenditures on it. That includes all their apparatus, equipment, and station projects. Additional fire station project details are as follows. So we have them actually split down here between the apparatus, the equipment, like I said, and then the fire station repairs and maintenance that need to be done over the next course of a few years. So starting with apparatus in 2025, we have a couple different things here. We have a rescue, which is basically an ambulance, correct?
Yep.
$200,000, and this is the replacement rescue because of the insurance claim for one that was damaged, what, earlier this year, or was that last year?
Earlier this year.
Okay. We have an engine for $1 million that's being looked at as well. We have 2 staff vehicles, totaling $100,000. Moving on to 26, we have another staff vehicle for $50,000. I'm not going to run through every one of these. I'll only do the 25, 26, and 27s. So that's pretty much it on the apparatus side. For equipment, there's really nothing that's in that 3 years. Moving on to fire station number 1, as far as repairs go, we have an apparatus bay floor refurbishing for $100,000. And that's the only thing for station 1, primarily due to all the refurbishing that just took place in your station 1.
Yep.
Station 2, there's some projected building maintenance and repairs for $25,000. There's also $100,000 put into the budget for design and construction services for the renovation or new construction of station number 2.
Which one's 2?
It's the one at Sasheville
Sasheville.
and Clarkston.
It's right there, the address right
Oh,
there.
And then
I get 'em
moving,
mixed up.
and actually, that's it for repairs, at least as far as those 3 years go.
Can I interrupt really quickly?
Sure.
I'm sorry, can you elaborate on what the renovation repairs are for 2 for 25 that you've got?
So we set aside $100,000 if in fact we start moving forward and getting design services, sort of the beginning stages of what we should do with Fire Station 2. We don't know if it should be a complete tear down and rebuild or a remodel. So we haven't gotten to that point. We wanted to set some money aside in 2025 to begin that process of trying to gather that data and information so I can come back to you folks and share with you what the kind of the thought will be with Station 2 moving
I think
forward.
she was asking about the maintenance, or
Well,
the
yeah,
$25,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is the 25 just miscellaneous, or is
Yeah,
that-
just miscellaneous, just to kind of keep that station above
Okay.
water.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question too, on the rescue vehicle for 2025 for the 200,000 is, and I see farther down, the rescue vehicle is 450,000. Is that 200,000 the difference between what the insurance covered and what we would have to pay?
Yeah, so the rescues have gone up in that cost, but we're getting approximately 300,000, excuse me, in replacement cost for the rescue that got damaged.
So that's just a function of the insurance that we're carrying in for that? It just didn't cover the whole thing, or?
That's the replacement cost that they covered
Actual
up to this
cash
point
value.
for that particular
Okay.
vehicle.
Cover the whole thing.
Because of, the rescues are going up quicker in price than the insurance is keeping up with the replacement part of it.
Okay.
Funding for all capital purchases will come from the fire millage and excess fund balance over the 25% reserve. Page 3 is actually the whole plan laid out in front of you, and if you kind of focus at the bottom of the page, that's where the actual funding comes from. And, you know, after looking at the whole 15 years, when we first looked at this, we were a little bit short in 2039. I know that's 15 years out. But what we wound up doing is we wound up increasing our annual contribution from $250,000 to $280,000. Again, that was kind of twofold because we know all the equipment is going up in price. And obviously it then covers our deficit spending at the end of 2039 if everything goes as planned and the numbers come in as planned. But this kind of gives you a good representation of how we're funding all of these purchases. Okay? Page 4 is the actual BS&A budget itself for the 3 years that we're looking at budgeting this year, 25, 26, and 27. The numbers jive exactly with the schedule I just showed you, so it's really just the BS&A version of that statement. Moving on to the actual fire fund. We're going to be looking at basically significant variances greater than $5,000. So in summary, revenues are projected to decrease $35,000, almost $36,000, or 0.4%. Labor costs are projected to increase about $186,000, or 2.8%. Operating/capital costs are projected to decrease about $531,000, or 27.4%. And operating transfers are projected to increase $30,000, or 12%, compared to the 24. And our overall planned increase to fund balance came in at $314,000. This is $279,000 more than the 2024 amended budget. And fund balance at the end of 2025 is projected to be about $4.1 million.
Quick question, sorry, maybe for Renee. Why are you projecting a 40% decrease in revenue?
We had ARPA funds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what the big thing is.
Okay.
Assumptions. Requesting 3.372 mills with the adjustment for the Headley rollback. Original millage approved in August 4 of 2020 was 3.4509. Wage increases for union positions in 25 is 2%, in 26 it's 2%, and at 27 we're estimating 3.5% because that's the new contract, wouldn't it be?
It would be the start of the new
Yeah, we started with a new contract, so we're still kind of estimating that. And non-union positions in 25 is 3%, in 26 3%, and 27 3% respectively. Medical benefit plan coverage based on the 2025 State of Michigan annual cost limitations, which is basically the caps that the board has adopted. It's a very small increase in 2024 or over 2024. It's a 0.2%. I never liked budgeting that low, so I'm actually putting a 5% increase in state caps just to be on the safe side for 26 and 27. Dental and vision premiums budgeted to increase 10%. Life insurance budgeted for no increase in 25 and an increase of 7.5% in 26 and 27. Short and long-term disability insurance budgeted for no increase in 25 and also an increase of 7.5% in 26 and 27. Pension expense, DB MERS, includes accelerated payment plan above the minimum required contribution. We're paying roughly an extra $300,000 a year in additional payments to basically pay that down. Then we continue funding the capital improvement plan for future purchases. Moving into the actual variances themselves, under revenues, we have increases. Property taxes projected to increase $372,000 or 5.3%. That's due to higher tax values within the township. We have a new item here, federal grants, public safety are projected to increase $103,500 or 100%. That's due to the firefighter turnout year 2024 program, which is not expected to recur in 25. Charges for services, ALS, are projected to increase $130,000 or 14.1% due to an anticipated increase in call volume and basically year-to-date results. Interest and rents are projected to increase $49,000 or 47.6% based on the most recent investment strategy from the treasurer. And there are 3 other revenue accounts, all of them are less than $5,000 that are increasing revenue budget by about $6,500. Significant decreases to revenues. We have other federal grants, ARPA projects are projected to decrease $635,000 or 100% due to the completion of fire department ARPA funded projects in 23 and 24 that will not recur in 25. Rent for MedStar is projected to decrease $58,000 or 100% due to non-renewal of the building lease. And then there are two other revenue accounts, both less than $5,000, that are decreasing the revenue budget by about $4,400. Moving on to labor and benefits, significant increases. We have wages full-time are projected to increase $74,000 or 2%. That's basically due to the 2% wage increases for union positions, 3% increases for non-union positions, and CBA wage step increases. Payroll taxes projected to increase $7,400 or 2.4%. That's basically due to the wage increases I just mentioned. Wages overtime projected to increase $23,000 or 9.1% based on wage increases and 2024 year-to-date results. Pension expense, DC 401A, projected to increase $42,000 or 25.5% due to the hiring of new employees in 2024. Pension expense, DB MERS, projected to increase $91,007 or 10% due to contributions to the defined benefit plan unfunded liability. Retiree health care, HCSP, is projected to increase $10,000 or 25.6%, and that's due to salary increases and the addition of new members in that particular plan. And there are 4 other labor benefit accounts, all less than $5,000, that are increasing labor and benefits by about $5,600. Decreases to labor and benefits, we have health insurance premiums projected to decrease almost $40,000 or 5.7%. That's due to fewer family coverage health insurance plans than what were budgeted in 2024. Retiree health care, OPEB, projected to decrease $23,000 or 9.5%. That's just due to participant changes within the plan and slightly lower premiums. And there are 7 other labor benefit accounts, all less than $5,000, that decrease the labor benefit budget by about $6,200. Moving on to operating capital costs, significant increases. Operating supplies, medical, projected to increase $10,000 or 11% due to increases in medical supply costs. Firefighting gear is projected to increase $91,000 or 157% due to the purchase of second sets of turnout gear under the Firefighter Turnout Gear 2024 grant program. Contractual services, ALS, projected to increase $9,000 or 16% due to expected run volume increase and revenue. Charges, Oakland County, projected to increase $14,000 or 9.8% due to an increase in the dispatch service agreement. Computer services projected to increase about $5,600 or 11.7%. That's due to an additional software subscription for EMS protocols and subscription and other subscription increases. Equipment repairs and maintenance projected to increase $8,000 or 123% due to battery replacement for Stryker and Lucas chest compression equipment in 2025. Professional development tuition reimbursement is projected to increase $7,000 or 58% due to anticipated reimbursement requests over 2024. And there are 4 other expenditure accounts, all less than $5,000, that are increasing the expenditure budget by about $11,000. On the decrease side, we have gas and oil projected to decrease $8,300 or about 11%. That's due to year-to-date 2024 results. Contractual services projected to decrease $37,000 or 31% due to a one-time refund to the city of the village of Clarkston for fire services. Building and grounds maintenance projected to decrease $5,700 or 4.3%, and that's due to fewer maintenance projects projected in 2025. Equipment, $5,000 and greater. ARPA projects is again projected to decrease $635,000 or 100% due to the completion of the fire department ARPA funded projects in 23-24. And there's one other expenditure account that's less than $5,000 that's decreasing the budget by $2,100. Operating transfers, this is where I mentioned we actually increased our transfer to the CIP by $30,000 from $250 up to $280. That's a 12% increase, and again, it's to support the increased cost for equipment and building maintenance. There are no decreases for operating transfers. So that leaves us with items that could impact this budget during 2025 that are not budgeted. And that would include major equipment breakdowns requiring repair or replacement, major building repairs, higher than anticipated fuel costs, significant increase or decrease in run volumes, and customer non-payment of EMS billings. Those are your main items that have changed between the 24 and the 25 budget that we're looking to get approved. Are there any questions on that particular budget?
No one, no question. Ron, you have a question?
On our EMS payments, I know we changed billing people a couple times. Are we maintaining our recovery on that, or what's our percentage?
Yeah, everything's been going good with the company, Actimed. We also have the company, Merchants of Medical, that does any of our bills that do not get paid. They handle that side of it. So thus far, everything's good with that, and recovery of our funds is good, so.
Our recovery rate stayed up, though it hasn't been declining, or it's been, you feel it's been stable or increasing as opposed to decreasing? Okay. I know that's why we changed companies a while back too,
Yeah, 21.
yeah.
Okay. Over here. All right. Okay. Jen?
Yeah, Chief, could you explain the firefighter turnout gear grant program?
Yeah, certainly. So there was a grant that was being offered by the state of Michigan, where the fire department wrote for the particular grant to be in a competitive situation with other departments to receive money for the purchase of a second set of turnout gear. And the reason for that is in the fire service is that you strive to have 2 full sets of gear for each firefighter that you employ. So if the first set of gear is damaged or needs to be cleaned and dried, that there's a fresh set of gear for that firefighter ready to go in that instant. Normally when you go to wash the gear for the firefighters, it takes a few days for it to dry, be ready to go. So having 2 sets of gear is kind of what all the firefighters or all the fire departments are striving for. So the state of Michigan generated a grant program. One of our firefighters wrote for it, and we won the grant for it, so.
Okay, so this is a one and done, so,
Well, it's in and out.
Yeah,
There's,
So-
the revenues have the grant money coming in.
oh, okay, got it.
No
But
bottom
I'm
line
s-
impact.
But so over the long haul, if we went to 2 sets of gear, we would, and not necessarily be obliged, but would have to think about adding that to the budget to cover 2 sets of gear 5 years from now, or whatever the shelf life is for.
Yeah, it's 10-year shelf life for gear, so yeah, at that point, if there's no other grants to go for at that point, then yeah, we'd have to make a decision if in fact we wanna hold that bar of having 2 sets of gear.
Got it, okay, thank you.
What's the status with the MedStar building?
They're leaving, in end of December, and that'll be the end of the lease, obviously, so we,
Who owns the building?
pardon me,
Who owns the building?
the fire department.
Okay, that's the old cable station building,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
the one we're talking about? And
Yeah,
that's
right next to
owned by
Station
that's
3.
part of the fire department property, so you go all
Yeah.
the way to the corner?
Yeah.
It used to be a fire station.
That was the old fire station.
It was a fire station in the early 70s,
Yeah.
late 60s.
I came when it was a cable station,
Mhm.
TV, you know, that's when I
We
started.
used to run around and play over there.
All right, so what, okay, so what, you got a plan?
The plan will be to essentially go out and put it on the market. We tried to meet with some people that had some interest, but that fell through. So now we'll have to go out to market and see.
To lease. Is that,
Pardon?
you're implying to lease it again?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we're striving for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With ambulance staff? You still gonna try to do something like the MedStar setup, where we have extra ambulances or not?
No, we're not striving for that. We're just striving to find a new renter,
Okay.
so.
Okay, Paul?
Any chance to talk to Kaya? Anybody get a chance to talk to Kaya, Clarkson Area Youth Assistance? And in my, because I know somebody that looked at it, there was somebody we thought maybe wanted to do an after-school program. It would be a great location for someone who wanted to do a private or not-for-profit after-school program for kids, right there near the schools. So I'll send a message to Kaya and just let
Okay.
him know that you guys are gonna be looking for a tenant for that building.
Appreciate that.
And so,
And Clarkson Area Youth Assistance, last thing, they operate out of the middle school,
they do.
so it's right across the street
Yep.
for like an after-school
Yeah,
tutoring.
so
to
they,
your
but they,
point,
but they might know
or
somebody who
or an
wants to do that
adjunct,
sort of
right,
stuff,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Oh,
Uh,
Ron?
If you wanna just focus on page 10 real quick.
Hold on,
Oh,
Ron,
sorry,
Ron.
sorry, didn't hear you.
I guess, I'm just gonna bring this up, that this kinda focuses a lot, obviously the budget's, all the big monies or a lot of the big money is spent on physical items or whatever, you know, but basically when we get to the budget, there's also labor in there too.
Sure.
And I know that before the, or even during the millage campaign to get the millage renewed, we talked about staffing and everything. And I guess I was wondering, I didn't see like a paragraph or narrative on what we're doing with that.
Just getting to that, because it's actually in the next 2 years out, it doesn't really impact 2025. It comes into play when the new millage kicks in, which gives us that extra $500,000. And that's what I was gonna point out in 2026. You can actually see the fund balance actually starting to increase, but that's also taking into consideration, we added 3 new bodies to complete the full complement on each shift.
Correct.
So that has been rolled into here, and you can still, we're still seeing an increase in our fund balance. Again, that was all planned as well, because we know we have this building, number 2, that we have to deal with at some way, shape, or form. Whether we're gonna have to bond it, whether we pay cash for it, this depends on what we do. But the funds are starting to grow, and that was the whole point in getting that extra $500,000, so that we had some opportunities to possibly pay for this ourselves, as opposed to bonding it out. Okay. Any other questions on the fire fund? No? If not, I guess we are done with fire, and we can move on to police.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Chief.
Comments up here? We can move on
Thanks,
to that.
Renee.
Good job, Renee.
Thank you, Chief.
Hey, how are you? I'll actually do this here, just take this, if you wanna follow through. Each will have it. Okay, the police fund. This one here, we're looking at variances that are $3,000 or greater. In summary, revenues are projected to increase almost $380,000 or 5.2%. Labor costs are projected to increase $9,500 or 9.2%. Operating costs, operating transfers projected to increase $507,000 or 7.5%. And overall planned increase to fund balance came in at $356,000, and that's $137,000 less than the 2024 amended budget. If the numbers come in as anticipated, the ending fund balance will come in about $3.1 million, of which $1 million, almost $7 million, is over the 20% reserve. Assumptions used to prepare this budget, obviously the approved millage of 2.8531 mils, and that's been adjusted for the Headley rollback. We have 3% wage increases for 25, 2% for 26, and then back up to 3% in 27 for all employees. We've increased the crossing guard wage to $20 an hour in order to attract and keep employees. And hospitalization, life insurance are both the same as what I read off for fire, so I'm not gonna run through those again. The current contract with Oakland County expires at the end of 2024. We still have not gotten a new contract. We still haven't gotten any real good information from the county as to what that contract is gonna look like starting January 1st. But we've been kind of led to believe it's gonna be somewhere in that 10% range, so we put a 10% increase in for 2025. And then we also put 2 5% increases in for 26 and 27. Obviously, if those numbers are way out in left field, we're gonna have to do some budget amendments, either 4 or plus, just depending on what that contract actually comes in at.
A question on that.
Sure.
At which point, if the county keeps raising its fees, are we in jeopardy of changing our staff or doing something, or do we just keep ponying up more and more money every time? Is there a break point that we get to?
I guess that would be the board's decision as to where that really is. I mean, obviously, we're making money still, but you're saying, you're probably, what, 1 or 2 officers short of what the quota is supposedly based on population?
Right, I mean, it increased to 2 per 1,000, but obviously I don't think we, in the township, have the population to have 2 deputies per 1,000. So, but we're actually under that, the old gauge was 1 per 1,000 or 1.2 for 1,000. We're actually just under that.
So do you have about 40 people staff?
35.
35,
Yeah.
okay. And I just wondered about that, because it's with the dispatch going up, they're just
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not 5%, 13, 11.
Right.
I just wondered, at one point, do we become at risk of,
Well, you've always
know.
got your options, like I said, you could decrease staff, which is never a good thing to do.
Right.
Or you gotta go to the public and get a millage increase to support
Okay.
the inflated costs that the county's charging.
and we're good, you think, until what year right now?
Well, right now, it doesn't look bad, but again, we have a building problem too with there. We're trying to put
Right.
them into something different, but, yeah, if you focus on, page 14, you can see fund balance, and again, we're looking at the amount over the 20% reserve, even though we could probably go a little deeper into that. But, we got 1.7 at the end of 25, it's going up to almost 2 million at the end of 26, and stays right around that number for 27. So it gives us a couple $1 million to do something, and possibly even a little bit more, because that's still, we have a $3.6 million fund balance at the end of 27, of which 2 million we can use. We might be able to use a little bit more of
And
that.
could we use that at our own discretion with, towards built facilities, towards,
Yeah, it's in the millage.
Yeah.
okay, wasn't part of that
Oh, yeah,
millage,
no,
I just
no.
wanna know what we're, okay.
No, and that's what I mean, it's looking kind of nice, we are building up a little bit of money there, because we know we do have a building problem.
Right.
It's just a matter of what the proper solution is for that.
The only thing is, we don't know what the commissioners are doing. They have not given us a hint. We're just going
Yeah.
by what the sheriff's, budget person has told us, and we based that on 10% for the first year.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
But
yeah,
we
A lot
don't
of
know.
it's gonna be dependent on what that contract really comes in at,
Exactly.
as to
Right.
what direction we're gonna go.
But
for
we're in the
next few
black,
years.
we got some time to,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
The last item here under assumptions, continue budgeting for the neighborhood road improvement project in each of the 3 years budgeted. Moving on to significant increases to the 25 budget when compared to 24. Tax revenue projected to increase $315,000 or 5.3%. That's again due to higher tax values in the township. Charge for service Clarkston schools projected to increase about $3,000 or 25%. That's just due to increased activity over the past couple of years. Charge for service miscellaneous is projected to increase $9,000 or 150% due to increased activity. And these are things that are like non-school events, like your marathons, your food rallies, your Taste of Clarkston, different things like that, that all pop up into that particular area. Charges to the village of Clarkston, again, that's for police services, are projected to increase about $3,400 or 2.1%. That's due to higher tax values in the village. Interest income projected to increase about $55,000 or 54%, again, based on the most recent investment strategy from the treasurer. Other revenue, which is where we put the liaison officers, is projected to increase $17,000 or 10%. And again, that 10% is the 10% that we're expecting to get hit with, from the county for their increases. Then there are 2 other revenue items, both less than $3,000, that are increasing the revenue budget by about $2,100. Expenditure increases, wages, part-time employees projected to increase $6,300 or almost 78% due to increasing the hourly wage to $20 for the crossing guards.
Are those sheriff deputies retired or anything, or
No,
just regular
it's actually
people?
retired teacher that we just hired,
Okay.
that the township just hired.
Sometimes I see like a sheriff's car
We've
there.
been, because we couldn't find anybody to do
Oh,
that
okay.
position, we've been using deputies to
Help
cover
them
it.
out.
Sometimes on overtime, but, we have to cover it.
Okay, thank you.
Charges, Oakland County are projected to increase $548,000 or 9.6% due to the projected 10% increase for 2025. Excuse me, charges, Clarkston Schools projected to increase $3,000 or 25%, again, due to the increased activity over the past couple of years. Same thing with charges miscellaneous, projected to increase $9,000 or 150% due to increased activity. Then there are 12 other expenditure accounts, all of them less than $3,000, that are increasing the expenditure budget by about $3,900. And that's split between labor, which is $3,300 of it, and operating, which is about $600. Significant decreases to the 25 budget when compared to 24. Revenues, ordinance fines Waymaster projected to decrease $20,000 or 33% due to more non-truck issues that require additional officers, plus the winter months that are getting more mild, reducing road restrictions. Basically, less opportunities to go out there and ticket these guys that are carrying, heavy loads in the wintertime. So, and then you've got more, basically, vehicle incidences that are pulling your officers also away from doing those kind of inspections.
Yeah, it takes, for the weighmaster to do one truck, it can take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's less trucks that he gets to pull over. During the frost law, the county has frost laws, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about that, and that's where a lot of the higher end tickets revenue
Right.
comes from.
The easy prey at that point.
Yeah.
Because a lot of their trucks empties are in violation of the frost law.
Exactly.
So you're
Yeah.
you gotta kinda use your judgment on them, because you could just hit every truck every day and just
Exactly.
be relentless, that's the funny thing, the frost laws.
Yes, it
Thank
is.
you.
District court fines projected to decrease 5,000 or 11%, and that's due to a reduction in the number of fines levied by the court system. And then there's one other revenue account, less than 3,000, that's decreasing the revenue budget by just under $1,000. Decreases to the expenditures, contractual services projected to decrease 43,000 or 100% due to the, basically the refunding of the village for the overpayment of police services. That's not going to recur in '25. Equipment rental is projected to decrease $7,800 or 17.8%. That's due to the installation costs of the flock cameras budgeted in 2024 that will not recur in '25. And there are 5 other expenditure accounts, all of them less than 3,000, that are decreasing the expenditure budget by just over $2,000, split between labor, $70, and the rest of it is in operating. That leaves us with items that could impact this budget during 2025, and that could be ordinance fines coming in less than anticipated, fees to Oakland County coming in higher than projected, and unexpected building repairs. Then obviously on pages 13 and 14, it actually shows the budget in its entirety. And again, as I pointed out, fund balances are increasing a little bit, which just puts us in a better position to hopefully handle this new contract and do something as far as putting you guys in a new location, new building. And that's it for police. Are there any other questions on that? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rick, curious what the percentage contribution is between township and school on the liaison officers.
It's roughly, I know we're paying more, it's roughly 60-40, I believe it is. Well, it's 50-50 for the 9 months.
Right.
But then the township picks up the other 3 months.
Right,
So
and
when you
as
take the
they do
whole thing-
more township-related
Yes.
patrols or what have you, or services.
Right.
Yeah.
So it
So
comes out
township
more.
60,
Yeah.
in aggregate, over the course of our budget, it's 60-40
Yeah.
township, school district.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Gets skewed a little bit by the, like the private one, for the private school now, they're paying a little bit more, aren't they?
We didn't contract
Yeah,
with them.
they did contract.
Oh, they didn't?
They have
Oh,
a
okay.
private-
They went individually.
They're self-funding,
Okay.
Everest.
Well, I mean, they came in to
They
get that
didn't come
approval
to
to
ask,
do that, but
though.
I guess I assumed that went through it, okay.
Yeah, they have a
Yeah,
private
they
security.
decided not to do it.
Okay,
We went a different route, I'm not sure what, but exactly.
So you're gonna call him?
go ahead, Assistant Chairman.
Oh, he's not even here.
It's probably closer to 70 or more % if you consider actual work hours. Because liaison officers obviously don't take a lot of vacation during the school year. So during the summer months, they would have significantly more time off, just because that fits in their schedules or calendars. We talked about that when we talked about Everest.
Well, just on that, when they're doing the school thing, why doesn't their vacation align with the school kids' vacation?
Well, it does. It
Okay.
does, yeah. A lot of
Full
times
summer.
they'll take, during the holiday, they'll take extra days off or vacation days and just to kind of coincide with the holidays.
So when summer's here and we got them for 3 months, they're not going on a month's vacation at
No,
that time.
no,
I
they
mean,
they
just-
have a certain amount of vacation time that they can take and they can't like take like the whole summer off or anything like that.
No,
Right.
but they take,
But they do take some.
could be 6 weeks, right?
It depends on what they, how many years they have on and how much it builds up.
Would the
for.
resource officers tend to be people who have more seniority because they like to do that?
Not necessarily, no.
All right.
No.
But it's more time off than they take during the school year, I would imagine. Jim, I think we talked about this during Everett.
Yeah, a little bit more, yeah, because because the school's out.
Yeah, school's out,
They got more opportunity to take vacation.
yes, so,
yes.
okay.
Do you have any control over that?
No. No, all we have a certain amount of people that, can take off per shift, but that's all the control. I
But
have.
if your job is the designated liaison officer, you can't have the job description be that a certain amount, a certain amount of your vacation needs to be taken during the school year that aligns with the kids?
No, it's
No.
all
Okay.
based on seniority.
Okay.
They all have the same.
Just asking if that was,
I only bring it up
Okay.
because I'm an accountant, so when people say we pay 65 and we pay 60, they pay 40, I look at the work hours, right? And I know that that's not, those numbers aren't, it's a little bit stretched a little further in the other direction. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because taxpayer money's funding it, whether it's coming out of our budget or the school's budget. It's taxpayer funded, so.
Just one more question, if I
Sure.
may, Lieutenant. Just curious about the Waymaster, and where do we stage people or stage deputies? Is it on our main thoroughfare?
Yeah, we have one waymaster and he
Oh, okay.
controls through the township, and yes, it's mostly on the main streets. He very rarely goes on the expressway. If
Okay.
he goes on the expressway, it's just to pull someone over, take them to this way station.
I
Jim,
gotcha.
Jim just wants to know where he's hiding so he
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
avoid it.
Yeah, my Dodge Dart's super heavy.
But you have the culverts, the road down, and then during frost times, that weight limit that's.
Okay, and is their prerogative, because it's a commercial vehicle, they don't, they just assume that they appear heavy, or how does that all work out? Just not to digress from our budget
No,
discussion.
he inspects it, visually inspects it, it's called a driving inspection, a rolling inspection, but certain garbage trucks or whatever, he can tell, that
Yeah,
if they're
trained
picking
to-
up, he can say, okay, I think they're gonna be over. And if they-
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount of weight that's on roads, especially during frost time, he knows that weight truck can't, even the fire department has their trucks weighed to make sure that they're,
right. And
they're right.
some of the trucks are in violation empty.
Okay,
Paul?
I had the fortune about 7 or 8 years ago of actually seeing him behind a truck pulling him over on Clarkston Road. He pulled him into a parking area, and I pulled in, and he saw who I was, and I said, "Is it okay if I watch?" And he said, "Sure." And he had these little things he pulled out and put them under the tires, back up onto this, back up. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. He had weighed the truck, and after he got done, then there was some dripping oil or something, and he wrote everything up, and later on he said, I knew they were overweight when I got behind them. You can just tell by the way they lean as they go around a curve, how much they weigh. So his expertise is really visually, he can tell.
Yeah, their weight shifts with the load that they have,
Mhm.
yeah, they can tell,
If they don't have the extra axle down.
yeah.
Yeah, all those things come into play.
Tires are half flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, the weighmaster is Catullus, who was here tonight, right?
Yes, yep, absolutely.
It's just a fine line, because during frost laws, you could ticket almost every truck that pulled off of M15 or they're allowed on Dixie and M15, but
Right.
they can't go on Maybe
Road,
you
yeah.
know, so it's like you can, like I said, so at least he's got discretion, because that could be detrimental to anyone's business, because you could just continually just
He has
hammer 'em,
discretion,
and
and at court, he can agree to have the fine lowered or
Right.
whatever, yeah.
He also tends to watch for guys hopping, that would appear to be bypassing the way station, right? So they're getting off on M15 and suddenly he sees them heading down
Yeah,
Clarkson Road.
he does all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I guess we should probably continue to talk about the Waymasters, because that amount that we're bringing in now is actually less than the 50,000 that we're funding the NRIP program with. So we need to really kind of keep our eyes on that as well. Because I know there has been talk, when you guys came up with your suggestions on how to use that road millage money, and you were saying maybe we should take the past years and pull it forward and put it into a separate fund and have a bigger pile of money for NRIP.
Yeah.
If that actually comes to fruition, we're gonna have to go back and actually take a look and see what we actually can pull forward. from that, you know, from the 50,000 that we've had budgeted that were never really used.
Didn't we budget 200,000?
Okay.
Well, the 150 comes from the general fund.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, 50,000 comes in from the police due to the waymaster fines.
Okay.
Okay, so
Ron?
I'm just saying we have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have my same comments I had with the fire. I think both the fire and police are imperative that we should have a paragraph on here that talks about labor. I know there's labor contents in here when you talk about benefits and overtime and stuff like that, but I mean, to me, there should be a paragraph or some bullet points, how many staff people we have, you know, if it's 35 or whatever. Should say how many people we have and,
We can do that, I mean, because that would be the big contract. I mean, as far as actual township employees, we only have one. That's the administrative assistant there.
Well,
So-
part-time with crossing guard, though.
Well, the crossing guards.
But that's a township employee as well, yes.
Yeah.
but I mean, part of what this is talking about, we're paying so many staff people, you know, for the sheriff's department, I guess. To me, all we're seeing is total numbers. We don't know how many people that is, and I guess that's what I'm getting at. There should be a little statement on there that, you know, this encompasses 35 officers or something
Okay,
like that.
all right, yeah, we can make that comment.
I didn't know.
No, that's a fair statement.
Okay. So I see you guys covered the flock camera, which is a one-time only expenses.
Yes.
Expense, right.
Well, the installation of it,
The
that's
installation.
$7,800, yeah.
Right, that's one time. And then, okay, that's something that can impact, is a potentially next year can be changed if Oakland County maybe charges more than 10%. So if they decide to go above 10%, that can be a problem for next
It's
year.
gonna be a problem as far as meeting the budget. We're gonna have to
Right.
do probably a budget amendment, so, I mean,
Right.
to keep us within budget, yes.
Okay, we'll have to keep an eye on the county commissioners and hopefully
Well, hopefully they're
they
gonna have a
remain lower than
decision here
10% too.
sometime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, I mean, the end of the year is coming up fast.
I know we attend one of the meetings with a lot of the supervisors, with a lot of the deputies, and we were concerned back then, and hopefully the county commissioner make a wise decision, you know, across the board for everybody.
Yeah,
Okay.
Hopefully.
I mean, we try. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You can actually, well, you can have it if you want, yeah.
Okay.
We have a couple of small funds here before we get into Independence Television and Safety Pass. So we have the CIA fund. This fund basically is kind of just running at this point. It's only good through 2030, but its primary focus at this point is to repaying the principal and interest payments that we are making on the North Sashaba Road project, the bond that we took out for that. And that's actually in another fund here, but their primary responsibility at this point is taking that money that we catch from the TIF financing and repaying the general fund, who's actually making those bond payments. In the budget for 25 through 27, there's $1.8 million that is budgeted to be repaid to the general fund. Okay? That's really all that's happening here. Yeah, there are some minimal costs in there for Carlisle Wortman for basically administrating the CIA, but other than that, there's no real other activity within that fund.
Treasurer Brown?
Yes, sir.
We currently have about $500,000 in bond proceeds that was from the North Sashaba project, right?
Yes.
And so the question for the board, and I think we should probably bring a motion forward, the rates we're paying on that are higher than the money we can get on it, because we can't invest bond proceeds like we invest everything else. That just sits in that account. And this is unlike the road millage money, where we've got the money, this was bond money, so we have debt associated with it. And you know, my position, and I think Rick's felt the same way, we should just take that $500,000 and pay against the debt that it came from, because we
Yep.
still owe the money.
Yep, that's one of the options,
So,
according to the bond documents.
and that would
yes.
help us pay that off sooner, right?
And save us
Absolutely.
interest
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
by
Save
throwing
interest.
$500,000 at it.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I'll put a MAPE together and bring it forward.
We don't have a plan for that money anyway, because.
No, but the other thing is that I was gonna mention is part of the bond documents is if the board wants to, they can put that $500,000 towards road projects. So that is the other option.
In the CIA district?
I would assume so, yes.
I think whatever the millage language.
Yeah, we have to
You
look
know,
at that
But for me, the
specifically,
idea
yes.
that we wanna spend it when we don't need it for the
I know.
project we
I'm
did,
just saying,
and
those
we
are
still
only
have the
throwing it out
debt,
there.
you're always
Because it
better
is
off
another
getting rid,
option.
you're always better off getting rid of that debt if you can. So I'll bring a motion, I'll bring a May forward for the board to consider, and we can have the attorneys look at it.
Is that
Get
capture
opinions.
over?
No,
It still goes
Is
on
it-
for another year
no,
or two.
it's, we're still capturing to pay this bond.
Okay,
And this won't
Right.
pay all the bond, but it'll
I mean,
mean
the
we pay
CIA
out
will be
sooner.
capturing through 2030.
2030, okay.
Yep,
I
yep.
knew it was out there a little bit, but not too far. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to come to its end, basically. I mean, it's, like I said, its primary function is just to pay the general fund back right now,
Yeah.
so.
But
Do you
the bond
think-
money, Rick has brought this up to me a couple of times about should the board look at paying that down, so.
Now, what happens if we have more, development and investment in the next 2 years, which raises the capture? What happens to that money at this, when it sunsets, when the CIA sunsets and we have a balance?
Right now, based on my calculations, there's not gonna be a balance. In fact, it's gonna be struggling to pay everything back right now, based on the latest numbers.
Based on the
based on the-
current tax situation?
Yes, based on where we're at right now, yes.
Okay.
And the,
It
you
is-
know,
it
and
is
those
true.
numbers do include, you know, new development and everything that's projected to
Projection.
get the rolls and everything in the next few years. So, but
Think-
right now,
I think we were under at the beginning, you know, we under collected at the beginning, and now there's just more development, it's speeding up, but it's still.
it is, but it's.
We're still gonna be lucky
it's
if it
close.
collects enough to pay it all off.
Yeah, until they added that extra 200 and some odd thousand to this streetlight out over here, we were on target to pay it all off. Now we're gonna be possibly a little short. This depends on how those numbers actually come in, the actual property captures that we get.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna come probably right down to the wire here, as far as whether
That
it's gonna
might
pay it
better
off or
help
not.
steer our decision with that 500,000, with that.
Possibly so. But I can actually, update that schedule. I mean, I did it a few months back, but I have slightly different numbers now, because there was a slight change. I don't know if it's gonna really change it to that extent, but I can still look at it again and I can update the board and let you know where we're at. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to CDBG fund. Again, this is an in and out fund, where every dollar that we receive is basically a dollar that we spend. There could be timing issues where we may spend money in one year and get reimbursed for that expenditure in the next year. But when all is said and done, again, everything that we bring in, we spend. Probably the biggest change with CDBG going forward from 25, yeah, if I can say it 3 more times, is the transportation piece of it. Because obviously we know that the county has put their transportation millage out there and has taken basically transportation out of the senior budget. And we were getting CDBG money to cover part of our transportation, small part, but at least it was something coming in. That's the only thing that's really missing from this any longer. But we are still getting minor home repair money to the tune of $42,000. We have Kaya, which gets about $3,500. We have senior services for $4,000, and then Springfield Township also contributes about $10,000 to basically keep those costs down as well. But that's really the only activity within this fund as well. I mean, you can see the balance, or you can see the operating statement here, and it all shows there's no fund balance on it, because again, we budgeted money in, money out, so there is no carryover dollars. Moving on to Independence TV. Elkie would like to come up.
Sure. Wait, that was Sam.
What's up,
It's
John?
Okay, Independence TV. Again, on this one, we're gonna be looking at significant variances greater than $3,000. So in summary, revenues are projected to decrease about $43,000 or 13%. Labor costs are projected to increase $2,100 or 1.8%. Operating costs / capital outlay projected to increase about $4,400 or 1.9%. And then our overall contribution to fund balance is a reduction of $68,000, which is 49, almost 50,000 less than 2024. Big note here, this fund is typically a zero balance fund, which means no increase or decrease to fund balance. However, the reduction of fund balance is actually fourfold. We've identified some supplies and small equipment to the tune of $1,200 that can be purchased with PEG funds. The van lease, which is expiring mid-year, can also come from PEG funds, or PEG fees. Purchasing the van, which is we're estimating roughly $8,500 as opposed to a new lease can come from PEG fees. And then the biggest thing here is a $55,000 reduction in PEG fees received, which means we're using fund balance to make our $200,000 annual payment to Clarkston High School. So the PEG fees are becoming a real issue with this fund, and if you actually look at the operating statement itself, which you can see where I want you to see on page 22. If you look at the very bottom number, and going all the way back to 22, you can see that the fund balance is continuing to come down, 434, down to 415, 396, 328, 257, down to 173,000 in 2027. Because PEG fees are slowly going away. And at this point, there's really only, I guess, a couple things that we can do. Number one, renegotiate with the school so that we're not giving them more than what we're receiving. Or we can try to go back to the Comcast and DirecTVs of the world and see if they will increase our percentage back up to where it was several years ago, which may help, but that may only just prolong things just a little bit, because it looks like these things are actually going away.
Yep. John, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Why the pay fees are going down? What's going on with them?
Well, PEG fees are associated with cable fees. So the more that people are getting rid of traditional cable, those fees are no longer coming to us because people aren't paying them because they don't have that service anymore. There is talks, I'd say long shot talks, of how the government's going to include streaming into paying for franchise fees and PEG fees moving forward, but that's still, I'd say, very much down the road at this point. We did have discussion this past year through some legislative talks that stalled in the Senate committee oversight, or the oversight committee in April, that was looking at actually getting rid of franchise fees and PEG fees. Luckily for us, those talks, like I said, have stalled. Now, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have to get through this year before that officially dies. The bad news about that is we can't then add in this language to bring in streamers at this time. So that's something that we'll continue to monitor and see how that's adjusted through state legislation. Good news about this is other states are taking action as far as bringing streamers and redefining what a video service provider is. I think that's the big thing, is not just bringing streamers into this fee structure for using right-of-ways, but redefining who is a video service provider and kind of modernizing the term as far as what we're looking at.
Jim?
Yeah, I would just say this is definitely more of a state legislative fix than anything we can control here at the township level. And, that being said, to your point, we need to rethink that model, because traditional cable, as we know it, quote-unquote cable, is shifting in a different direction as more and more people stream the same services. At the end of the day, the delivery is similar. It's just a different conduit, right? And just like, the legislature had to make a decision some years back to rethink how we do registration fees for vehicles. And, as we go to electrification, paying a tax at the pump isn't quite working, right, in the same manner. So, yeah, we're gonna have to advocate, and I know with Midwest Strategy Group is gonna be here in about a month to provide us a legislative update on, maybe we can ask them to dig a little deeper on that topic.
Is that
The lobby,
lobbyist?
yeah.
They have been working on that issue. We met with them, with John.
That's a township, every township and municipality is concerned about that issue, right? It's.
What are we paying the school $200,000 for?
That was written in our intergovernmental agreement back 10 years ago. It was written at $200,000 because we were receiving well over $200,000. And I believe in 2014 it was decided to go from the standard 2% fee that we were collecting through these cable companies down to a 1.6%. Since then, we saw about 4 years where we collected over $200,000. That stopped in 2019, and we haven't reached that number since. So we have been using the fund balance to cover that $200,000 that's written in that intergovernmental agreement. Now, as Rick said, we are looking at, and we have a meeting with the school to renegotiate the intergovernmental agreement to amend that section of the contract to take out the figure amount and rather put the full amount of PEG fees. So we're no longer going to be bleeding money out of the fund balance to cover those costs. We'd rather just get the money that is actually being sent over. So we should be able to return to a money in, money out situation.
Right. However, there is one other thing I wanna throw out there too that I haven't been able to say yet is, the school is sitting on $500,000 of our money that they've accumulated over the years, that we've been paying them for $200,000. So even though this fund is going down, the school still has money to operate, you know, that we have given them from past.
Yep, we've been pretty aggressive as far as our savings the last few years to try and be mindful of this situation. It's something that we've been monitoring quite a bit over the last few years, so we've been quite conservative in our savings over at the school side of things, just kind of preparing for a situation such as this, so. Paul, you had a question?
No, but just, I'm not sure, I don't know if your question was fully answered, which is why are we giving the school $200,000?
That was my question.
Right, so if you remember back, Independence Television used to be in the MedStar building.
Yeah.
We had state-of-the-art equipment over there, and you could shoot a cannon through there because it was not used very much. The schools had all kinds of stuff going on, teaching kids how to use this equipment, and they had bad equipment. So in 2013 or 14, we said, hey, listen, if we partner up on this, we take all of our equipment, put it over there, okay?
Yeah.
But now they're teaching the kids, and Independence Television is now run out of the school, because Independence Television is actually separate from the school. It's not the same. So they have a program teaching kids, Independence Television is run out of there. We can't use PEG fees to pay operating costs. It has to be used for capital expenditures. So you can only spend it on equipment or a capital lease. So we basically are leasing the school's space in there for Independence Television, and it all comes together to have what really is a fantastic program with everything that happens. So that's how it started.
Seems excessive that we're paying them $200,000.
Well, at that time, looking at the PEG fees, that's what we were getting.
Well, that's because we were getting money that we didn't need, that we could afford to give them. That's not the case
Not anymore. It was
So, I'm just,
an unfortunate
you know.
decision that was probably good that day, but now we're paying for it now.
And is any of the township's taxpayers' money used to fund independent television?
No, it's not tax funded. It's a PEG fee that's associated on each cable
Yeah,
bill.
if you look
Yep.
at your cable bill, there's actually a.
Right, but
area
if
for
the PEG
for
fees
public
die,
education, government.
who's picking up the tab
Well,
to keep Independence
that's-
Township going?
That's where we're at. That's what we need to talk
Mhm.
about for a long-term solution, is how this program would be funded past PEG fees.
And it just seems to me that if they don't have any skin in the game other than the space in their building, and we're paying them
They have skin in the game.
Okay, some.
They've got a teacher there who's teaching the kids. and
Full-time
so-
teacher.
So it is a joint, it's not us
Okay.
just funding the whole thing,
Mhm.
they are financially participating as well, so.
I know, but-
He's got a co-person over there, right?
Yep,
There's-
we have a co-chair that
there's a
runs the station
co-chair
from the
and the
station side of
the
it.
school's doing all that,
That
so.
teaches all the kids. So during the day, as you know, our classroom is used as a working classroom for students. Now, if they pass those classes, they can earn college credit to further on their video production career. Now that we're 10 years into this program, we're starting to see students that started in this program, went through college, and are now getting their first full-time job in the field of video production. And so from a community standpoint, we are kind of giving back to community by training the next
Mhm.
level of people to go into various video production careers, from podcasting, studio management, television careers. It very much ranges.
And I'll just throw in, the success of all this is easily noticed when Coach Richardson, during Clarkston's best years, stopped recording games to get film. Because what they were doing was so far beyond what he could do, or was used to doing as a football coach, to capture videos of the games for studying and film. They were, everything they did was so good, he just said, I don't need to do it anymore. So, and seeing football games on TV too, all sort of was created because of this program, and other sports as well now, so.
Other sports, graduations,
Mhm.
community events, we kind of touch base on all of it. It's not just a simply government side, education side.
Yeah.
We like to say that we have three pillars that keep us up. It's the public, it's the education, it's the government. We serve all of those, I think, outstanding.
When's the contract up?
Contract is not up, but it's auto-renew, I believe. So, we can amend it as is with, you know, each conversation, but we
When
don't
do you
have.
anticipate renegotiating?
I'm sorry?
When do you anticipate renegotiating with them?
October 2nd.
Okay.
But by the
11
way,
a.m.
our meetings are being done through the school, like,
I know.
okay.
But I mean,
Just-
they've also banked $500,000, so their overhead,
Well, that's our
Is-
operating cost that we
Your
use.
operating
So it's
costs
not
are-
the schools that have that $500,000, it's Independence Television that does, and that's our operating budget for
okay.
each year. So when you say $200,000 being given to the school, it might be a little misleading. It's $200,000 that we use as our budget each year. And we've been using some of that money each year to save for our own fund balance over there.
Right.
So we have a fund balance over there, Independence Television does, not the schools.
Okay.
On the school side where we have our operating budget, but we also have a fund balance here on the township side as well.
Okay, that's all my clarity. When you say we give the schools $200,000 each.
Sure, yep, no,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, no, it's not
yeah,
$200,000,
okay.
that's just, enveloped into the school's budget. That $200,000 is then just turned over to us to operate the year, and that pays not only our full-time staff, our part-time staff, but
Right.
equipment upgrades and all that stuff. So we use all of that
Been there
money.
many times. It's a nice,
Yeah,
nice
we've used
setup.
that money not only for staffing and equipment, but also, like I said, we've been trying to be very conservative in our savings because we've been looking at these numbers, and everything like that to make sure that we can continue their service as long as we can.
All right.
Ron?
Done, Jim?
Go ahead, that's okay.
I was just gonna bring up, like, it's something we've talked about multiple times, and I guess being an entrepreneur, I always figure how we can make money in it. And I guess, you know, since we're broadcasting stuff, it goes back to how can we make money?
Sure, there are some small ways that we have to call it underwriting because we can't officially advertise because of the unique nature of who we are with a public, you know, a PEG station as we
Right.
call it. But as far as underwriting goes, it wouldn't even come close to covering these losses, I guess you could say. There are certain things that we get sponsored, like football games. We've explored that option. It hasn't really yielded any results that we're excited about continuing to explore. Not that we can't continue to explore it, but I'd say underwriting is probably the best way at this point. Because we are who we are, we're kind of in a unique situation when it comes to fundraising
Right.
options.
Well, I guess, you know, like the library and other entities, you know, have like Friends of ITV or something
Mhm.
like that.
We've
whether it's
talked a little bit
sponsorships
about
or-
that, and I'm not sure how Friends of ITV would work, if we'd have to move fully into nonprofit status to do something like that, to have that, entity, but, at least the community television stations that I know of in the area, like Orion, they're, you know, they kind of have a different setup than us, but they have I think they have a Friends, network as well, but they're a little bit different than us, and they're not, I think, fully with the government or anything like that, so, but I could be mistaken on that. But some do, but they're also, they're branched off from the government, so their own entity at that point, where they can kind of do that bigger fundraising, and they don't have those restrictions as far as commercials go, with their programming.
I think that's what John's getting at, is that he's gonna have to start negotiating pretty soon, because they're out of fund balance 2025, so.
Right,
So-
right, and, yeah, if I, may add, I know we probably wanna move on here, as PEG fees go away, let's say they pessimistically go away altogether, we are no longer bridled by the limitations imposed by PEG fee laws, right? I mean, so, to Ron's point, we could start and, call it, whether it's a user fee or advertisements and sponsorships,
Mhm.
because I don't think there's any question there's great value to what you and your team offer for students, for community, for government transparency, all those things, and we don't want that going away. We still want pay you salary to keep you and, keep you motivated and
Sure, yeah.
and so on
We
and so
appreciate it.
forth, so who knows, maybe, I mean, I'm hoping PEG fees don't go away, because they've been a steady, reliable income source, but should they not pivot to the new age, then maybe there is an opportunity to be more entrepreneurial.
There is, especially when it comes to funding, there might be different opportunities like that, like you said. I know one of my last previous positions, you know, we were able to kind of do some of that stuff where it was more commercial work, a little bit around the community, and we were able to kind of supplement a little income that way, which was nice, but that was a different situation, so, but we were allowed that flexibility to kind of do that kind of work. Not saying that we would be able to kind of do all that work all the time, but it is an option.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on ITV? I don't think we need to
All
go
right.
through any of the other
Yeah.
numbers, they're all small.
All right, moving on.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, appreciate it.
No problem. Have a nice night.
You too.
You too. Safety pad?
Moving on to safety path.
All right,
Mr. McKee?
Evening, everyone.
let's get down to the nuts and bolts of
Hello.
this thing.
Oh.
Page 23, if you want to follow along.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start actually with the safety path CIP plan, their 10-year plan. The current plan calls for future spending of $111,000 for equipment and projects totaling about $5.6 million, of which $15,000 is planned for equipment and $1.6 million is planned for projects in 2025. Some highlights for the 3 budgeted years. In 2025, we're looking at $1.6 million. You have the Clarkston Road Wingate to Sashbaugh, the one that we just pulled the $600,000 for. That's rebudgeted now in 2025. We have a new project, Greenview, from Clarkston Road to Sugarloaf. That's an $800,000 project. We're looking at doing some paving between the DPW building and the safety path building for a couple $100,000. And then we have 1 zero-turn mower for $15,000, also planned in 25. In 26, we only have $330,000 budgeted. That's for the Sashbaugh Road between Independence Oaks and Oak Hill, about $300,000. And then another $30,000 for utility cart snow removal. In 27, we're looking for $827,000. That includes the Walden Road, which is to widen the existing pathway approximately 2,000 feet. That's $800,000. And we have 2 mowers, a zero-turn mower for $15,000 and a walk-behind mower for $12,000. Those are the main projects over the next 3 years. Page 2024 has all the projects listed out through about 2032. So if you want to see what else is out there and coming, that would be the schedule to look at.
Question for Dave. Dave, why would we want to pave from the North Park to Oak Hill Road? What would be the benefit of that?
So everything that's on the CIP for new construction is based on the Safety Path Committee. You know, that's a priority. We have a priority matrix that we have,
Right.
and that is scored very high in members.
Who would use it?
I'm sorry?
Who would use it? Where would it, I mean, where would it? who
It's
would
from the
it-
north, you know,
Yeah.
I think you know what we're talking about.
I know right where you're talking
Pretty
about.
sure, yeah.
They got a brand new safety path from the South Park to the North Park, and then
Yeah.
there's,
Well, it's
you know, a
connect-
quarter of a mile to, or less than that to Oak Hill Road, but
Yeah.
why would, what do we benefit from dead-ending it into that, when right now it cuts across the street and goes into the neighborhood, you know, on the northeast corner?
Right.
Why would we run it just down to the the dirt road and end it
On
at Oak Hill?
It does go to, it stops at Oak.
The safety path stops at the North Park right now.
Yeah.
But why would we continue it to Oak Hill if there's no residences or no sidewalks or no paved roads or no access at Oak Hill?
I think it's part of this, not master plan, but the connectivity between communities, because that is the border between us and Brandon Township. Now, long-term, we talked about it, that we might even go down Oak Hill on our side all the way to 15. Long-term, but that's safe, because they pay tax, they pay the safety path millage as well. And it's driven by the committees, they're driven by the committee on projects that they
Okay.
want.
It's also a safety thing too, because it ends at the North Park right there. But, so people that want to continue on up to Oak Hill, the only choice they have is to cut across Sashbaugh and pick up on the other side, which.
Well, there's a crosswalk there. No, that's why I'm asking, why wouldn't they just keep it on the side of of all the residents in the township that live
Again,
right there between the park and Oak Hill? Why wouldn't you put it on the side of the road that goes with where the residents' homes are, instead of the park side, which doesn't have any resident accent?
There's residents on Oak Hill, though.
There is residents
Yeah,
on Oak Hill.
half a mile down's the first one.
And like I said, all projects are driven by you know,
Okay.
the committee and the citizens.
I'll leave it up to the committee's
just
decision.
for-
I just wondered.
We do have an issue with getting people like on Pine Knob Road, we've been working on this, Ron's on the committee, to cross Sashabaw. Sashabaw is a monster to cross.
Unless you go all the way to Oak Hill, there's no way to cross there unless you
Yeah.
just take your life in your own hands and shoot across the road.
It's
Well,
like
at
Frogger,
the North Park, there's
seriously.
a formal
Well, it's
crosswalk.
like that
We have one there.
right
Yeah.
at Greenview
But that
and
goes into
Sashabaw, there's a crossing
That
light,
safety
but
path that goes into,
people may or may not.
that goes north on that, that's not ours. That belongs to that subdivision. I mean, that's part of the reasoning too. That's private.
Okay, it just seems like
Yeah,
that's,
and it's-
there's other
We've been
more,
trying to get crossing on Sashabaw.
seems like there'd be
there,
other more pressing
Yeah.
spots than that, but that's fine. That's what they're doing.
And I just have a quick question about for similar reasons, Greenview, I know that street very well, it's pretty quiet. With other priorities, like Sashabaw may arguably be a better priority because it's such a busy road. Greenview is,
There's a lot of kids coming off Sugarloaf, walking to
Yeah.
the school there, that's why.
oh, it is, okay.
Over to Bailey Lake, yeah.
So we
So-
did do, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
We did do a safety path extension on Clarkson Road up to Greenview with a crosswalk.
Right,
Now, the Safe Route to Schools program, which is still on life support. Barely, but, you know, part of they were gonna pay for a, from Bailey Lake, not Bailey Lake, what's the elementary school right there at the end of Green? It is Bailey Lake.
Bailey
Yeah.
Lake,
Yeah.
it is Bailey Lake.
From Bailey Lake to Sugarloaf, that was part of it, because a lot of cars queue up there, dropping kids off. Well, the walking study that was done before that, a lot of kids that walk down Greenview all the way to Clarkston Road, and there's nothing there. So to complement that project, it was brought to the Safety Path Committee, and again, scored very high on the matrix with the members, and they said that would be a worthy project to do, because cars go ripping up and down Greenview pretty good, from my understanding. So that's why that scored high, and that's why, you know, those projects were put on the budget.
Got it.
What are you waiting for to connect Sashabaw from Monarch to Clarkston Road?
That's on the safety path.
Some,
matrix.
not in this
No.
timeframe.
So, you know, since we only get X amount of budget every year for new construction, plus all the other things that we have to do, that's why we did a priority matrix, and everybody scores it. Matter of fact, I have to send out the new one, we're gonna do it again, you know, because it is a living document, and things change constantly
Okay.
with that. But that is on there, that was just
West side
added.
of Sashabaw has been, probably been the hottest topic that we've been working on.
Can you send
From
that to
Monarch
the,
south to, try to,
send that to
people
Sam,
can
the
walk to
matrix?
Tim Hortons or whatever, and the same going north.
Yeah, up
Yeah.
to the
Yeah, no,
north,
I
okay.
can send it to you, Sam.
Yeah.
if you want.
There's sections of it that are there,
Yeah.
just missing a few little pieces,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, you know, and it's been part of the thing to have the developer put that in for us.
I
too,
know.
If things develop, so that's why you kind of see these little gaps here.
Thank you.
More questions? Okay, let's move on here. Again, we're focusing on just the safety path here, including the projects. Again, we're looking at variances $3,000 or greater. So in summary, revenues are projected to increase $110,000 or 12.1%. Labor costs projected to increase about almost $66,000 or 44%. Operating capital costs projected to increase $1,004,000 or 348% when compared to '24, and our overall planned decreased fund balance came in at just over $1 million, which is almost $1,004,000 or 390% less than the 2024 amended budget. Fund balance at the end of 2025 is projected to be about $2.3 million. Assumptions used for this budget: approved millage of .414 mils, and that's been adjusted for Headley. We have a 3% wage increase in '25, 2% in '26, and then back up to 3% in '27. We are looking to add one full-time employee for the safety path. Health insurance and dental, life insurance, and short and long-term disability are all what I've already said before. We have one zero-turn mower for $15,000. We kind of covered that too. We talked about Clarkston Road, Greenview, the paving, and then safe routes to school. We do have a comment on here yet, the project's still on hold with the state. So significant increases, property tax revenue, similar to what we've said before on these village-based budgets. It's up $45,000 or 5.3%. Again, that's due to higher tax values in the township. We have interest income and market value adjustments are projected to increase about almost $65,000 or 122%, again, based on the most recent investment strategy by the treasurer. Expenditure increases. Wages, full-time employees are projected to increase 51,000, almost 52,000, or 77%, primarily due to a 3% wage increase budgeted for that year, and hiring one full-time employee due to the lack of part-time help. Health insurance projected to increase 21,000, or 131%. Again, that's due to hiring a full-time employee. So when we don't know what that person is going to basically choose for a health plan, we assume the worst. We assume a family plan. This person could very well come in with a single plan.
Carrie?
Sorry. With the addition, Dave, of the one full-time, are you still planning on 2 or 3 part-time?
No,
That's coming.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah, we made an adjustment there. We're not getting rid of all of them.
Right.
That's for sure, but we're gonna cut back on that,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
And you're
We're
sure
trying
one's-
to offset as much as we can, but we're at a point where, you know, we need a full-timer.
You think one is adequate, not 2?
I'm sorry?
You think one is adequate, not 2?
Well, I'm ultra conservative on that, so to be absolutely honest with you, I'd like to go with one and see how we can work that out and keep those part-time opportunities open for college kids and whatnot. But, you know, time will tell.
The heaviest
Our
loads
system
during the
is
summer, and that's the time you get it, but the problem is they come late and they leave early.
Yeah,
so-
come late and they're out, second week of August, they're gone, you know, we got 3 more months, of August, September, October, mowing, and lots of work to do.
Okay.
Contractual services projected to increase 20,000, or 177%, and that's due to budgeting. We actually do boardwalk structural inspections in the odd years. This kind of gives us a better idea of condition they're in, what repairs may be needed coming, you know, that are coming at us. So we try to do that in odd years. Building and building improvements projected to increase 200,000 due to the paving project between the DPW building and safety path, which we mentioned. And again, pathways projected to increase $1.3 million, and again, that's just the difference between projects year over year. There are 12 other expenditure accounts, all less than 3,000, that are increasing the expenditure budget by about almost $13,000. The bulk of that being in labor, about $9,700, and the rest about $3,000 in operating. Significant decreases, revenues, there isn't anything. On the expenditure side, wages temporary is projected to decrease almost 17,000, or 43%, and that's due to a staff reduction from 2 to 1. That's your part-time reduction there. Building and grounds maintenance is projected to decrease 8,000, or 88%, due to tree planting on Parview and retaining wall repairs in _24 that are not expected to recur in '25. Repairs and maintenance safety paths projected to decrease almost 91,000, or 37.7%. That's primarily due to excessive repairs needed in '24 that again are not expected to recur in '25. Equipment is projected to decrease 44,000, or 74.8%. And again, that's just the difference between equipment purchases. We had a sickle bar mower attachment and truck purchase in '24 versus just a 0-turn mower in '25. And there are 3 other expenditure accounts, all less than 3,000, that are decreasing the expenditure budget by $945. Items that could impact this budget that aren't budgeted: major equipment breakdown, unexpected major repair to the safety path, or they have to approve a major project that isn't currently budgeted. And that takes us to the end of safety path. Again, on page 28, if you want to see how the fund balance is increasing, I mentioned the 2.3 million at the end of '25. That's going to go to about almost 2.7, and then because of the project we have budgeted, it's going to drop back down to 2.4. And again, that's what that fund is all about. You build the funds up, you do a project, it comes back down. You build, and it's just going to constantly go up and down based on the projects that are being budgeted. Any other questions regarding safety path?
No? No question. Move on.
I'm good for now.
You good for now?
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Thanks, folks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 more to go. We'll get there. These are small ones.
I'm dragging.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good night.
Thanks, Dave, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one here is the North Sashaba Debt Service Fund. Again, this one I had mentioned, the bond that we are paying for the Sashaba project, Sashaba Road projects. It happens to be the General Obligation Capital Improvement Bond, Series 2018. And again, all that happens in this fund is the general fund makes a transfer into the fund, and then we make the principal and interest payments. And it doesn't carry a balance, it zeroes out every year. So that's really the only thing that's happening in this particular fund. Again, if you look at the operating statement on page 30, you can see there's no fund balance that's carried forward. Any questions on that particular one? Probably not. Next one is the DDA budget. And this particular one, again, it's a brand-new fund. I believe this will be the second year that we have something budgeted. I know that there are projects that are out there. They have not been assigned a year yet, with the exception of the very first one that's on here. That's park creation, construction, and installation of a township entry sign. Obviously, the rest of it is just developing additional projects for the new district using available funds from the TIF capture. There's really not a whole lot more to say about this. I know when I was talking to Brian when we put this budget together, we were debating on whether we put the full amount that we're getting in every year as, you know, the projects for that year, but since we really don't have anything that we can say that, yeah, we're gonna spend this amount on this project, we decided just to put $150,000 out there for 26 and 27, and let the fund balance accumulate, which is what it's supposed to do. And then you use that accumulation of funds to do additional projects down the road.
And we can change that, right?
That can all change.
Okay, and what about what we're doing this year with the demolition and revegetation?
Oh, that's all budgeted, and we're good to go on that as far as I'm aware, based on what I've been told.
For this
For 2024.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yep. Like I said, in 25, we have that whole new sign and whatever else you're gonna do, develop at the park
Yep,
there, or
whatever
whatever the
we
case
get
may
there,
be.
okay.
So I think we're covered definitely through 25, but I think you need to,
Yeah, because
I
we're
think
probably
work
gonna,
needs to be done on identifying more projects and actually getting them onto a CIP
we're
schedule.
probably gonna be within a $25,000 range this year. I would imagine that we would be, stay under that with what I know we're proposing with the asbestos remediation, the demolition, and parking lot removal and the revegetation until we come up with a viable plan.
Okay.
So we're good with that, right?
Yeah, we should be. I mean, there's
Yep.
still, what, $40,000-$50,000 left there, so.
Yeah, we should be good.
We should be good,
Yep.
so. And this also has, you know, because of the land that was purchased and the DDA is reimbursing the general fund.
Yeah.
Those payments are out here as well for those next
Yep,
couple of years as well.
60
so.
grand.
Yep, the 60 grand.
Okay.
Then that leaves us with Walters Lake Fund. The Walters Lake Improvement Board was established was established under Part 309, the Inland Lake Improvements of Michigan's Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. In accordance with the act, the Walters Lake Improvement Board includes a lakefront property owner, a representative from each local unit of government abutting Walters Lake, the county water resource commissioner or designee, and a county commissioner. In 2013, 18, and 23, the Walters Lake Improvement Board held a public hearing on a 5-year improvement program for Walters Lake. The primary focus of the program is the control of nuisance aquatic plant growth. Plant control activities in Walters Lake are coordinated under the direction of the Lake Board's environmental consultant, Progressive AE. For this particular fund, we're looking at variances $1,500 or greater. In summary, revenues projected to increase about $2,100 or 3.6%. Operating costs are projected to decrease $20,000 or 24.8% when compared to 24. And our overall planned increase to fund balance came in at $2,800, and that's $22,000 more than the 24 amended budget. So what are some of the significant increases? Revenues, special assessment revenues are projected to increase about $2,000 or 3.3%. That's due to the new 5-year assessment agreement for 24 through 28. And then there's 2 other revenue accounts, both less than $1,500, that are increasing the revenue budget by $155. There are no major expenditure increases, but there is one other account, less than $1,500, that's increasing the budget by $1,000. On the decrease side, there's nothing on the revenue side, but on the expenditure side, equipment repairs and maintenance projected to decrease $21,000 or 100%. That's due to the dam maintenance that's being done in 2024. That's not expected to recur in 25.
This funded by an SAD, is that what this is?
Yes, it
And
is.
we manage it for them?
Actually, the board actually kind of manages. I get all the budget information from that board.
We have a
So
lake
they're the ones who dictate what actually happens.
The
as far
Lake
as
Board?
budget. Mhm,
Okay.
the Lake Board.
For Walters Lake
For
Board.
Walters Lake,
handles
yes.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, it's like, is that the only lake board that that we control the finances on?
It's the only one that I am aware of. We've never budgeted for any others, and I'm
I
not
know,
sure
like-
what distinguishes one from the other.
I'm on the Van Norman
The-
Lake
the
Board,
answer-
but
the
that's
answer is
controlled
yes.
by.
The answer is yes. This is
Okay.
the only one that's fully in the township. Even with the Mill Pond, we don't have very many residents on it compared with the village. And Lake Oakland, significantly more
In
people are in Waterford. Waterford
Right.
manages that one.
Yeah, Van Norman's managed by
Van Norman
Waterford
is
too.
Waterford.
What about Whipple?
Whipple doesn't have a lake board.
Oh, they don't.
Or a weed problem.
They could have weed problems, but they don't have a lake board.
I guess what I was getting at is if we do this for a lake board, are we gonna have the same activity then for these SADs that we're doing for the road improvement?
Well, they're probably gonna be handled, I'm assuming
No,
the way that the
because there's
pave
no
and
more
new
expenses
pave,
once
that was
it's done.
handled in your subdivision there when they were doing that paving project. Because those were just handled
No, I don't.
on the balance sheet as far as overall, and we're correcting
I
it.
can answer his question.
Go right ahead.
These are ongoing things. The road paving it's done, and then it's just about collecting the money.
Okay, so it's
It's not the
a
same.
limited project compared to an ongoing project?
Yes, these are ongoing with, and will continue to likely be ongoing if it's approved by the board in the
Okay.
future.
How does that work as far as length, sunsetting?
5 years, it's gotta be redone. We have public hearings every 5 years. And there's a structure for, if people wanted to get rid of it, they could get petitions to get rid of it. But we have to present our budget and then,
Okay.
have it approved every 5 years.
That's it for tonight.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Rick.
thanks, Rick.
Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
you.
What did you say about the first one in fire? Can you go over that?
Wait a minute, it's a little late there.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you, Rick.
Great job.
You're
There's
great
no
job.
going back.
Yes.
Great job, Rick.
Okay, moving on. Communications and future agenda items report. Portland County Sheriff Department, August 2024. Information Technology Oversight Committee, August 2024. Residential Open Space Advisory Committee, July 2024. A minute for Residential Open Space Advisory Committee, August 2024. And board member comments. All right, moving on. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?